radio for the masses.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
If the game is rigged, change the game. Game changer.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
This is Fade to Black with your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Radio Network.
I need your help to get to the year 1985. You're listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
Good evening. Fade to Black. Bespoke radio for the masses. Yeah. How you doing today? It's Monday, May 30th, 2022. Happy Memorial Day, everyone. I would like to welcome everybody listening from all around the world, all across the United States. Hither and thither, to and fro, back and forth, up and down, east and west, north and south, far and near. This is Fade to Black for KJCR, the Game Changer, and UNX Networks, Race Hobbs. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. What is cracking, everybody? Happy Memorial Day. That's right. I'm here with you on Memorial Day. That's right. It's going to be a great show tonight because we welcome very special guest Ross Coulthart. Joins us live from Australia. We're going to be discussing the Capitol Hill UFO hearing, a full analysis from Ross. And as you know, it's an open conversation, and it will go wherever it goes. And that's a guarantee with Ross. Very excited about this show tonight. Tomorrow night, Billy Carson is with us. We're going to be talking about the Black Knight satellite, and that'll be tomorrow. And then Wednesday night, all three shows this week are huge. Wednesday night, John Burroughs is with us. And over the years, it seems that every time I finish a show with John, I sit back and say to myself, that was the best show I've ever done. And it's probably going to be repeated this Wednesday night. John Burroughs is with us. Thursday is another Fader night with open lines all night long. And now I've been announcing this because I'm still getting email. I'm still getting text and comments from people that want to go to Egypt in October with Billy and I. And if their space is available, it is sold out. All right. Just like it looks like Detroit this weekend is approaching that same status. I will be in Detroit this weekend, June 5th. That is Sunday night for the world premiere of Billy Carson's Black Knight film. If you would like, there are still a few remaining tickets left, and Billy and I will be talking about that very briefly tomorrow night. We're excited not only for the world premiere of the film and the event that is going to happen in Detroit, but of course, what this means for our community at this point in time. And I would expect, I just had I'm not going to say who. I just had a company, I'll just say company, reach out to me to appear in something about the Black Knight satellite and if I could come on and comment about it. And I thought, it's really weird with everything that's going on today that the Black Knight satellite, which has been out there in our community for a number of years, that it is starting to become part of the conversation again. And it should. I declined the interview request, by the way. Yeah. I want to save it all for the Black Knight satellite. Coming up in a couple of weeks, I will be hosting Disclosure Fest right here in Los Angeles, downtown LA at the Los Angeles State Historic Park. Go to disclosurefest.org for tickets and info. I'll be doing a Disclosure Fest special show next week, and then we will talk about that. But if you're in Los Angeles, this is where you want to be on that Saturday for sure. It is when you get there and you look and you see the size of this and you're kind of looking around, you're like, holy crap, this is in downtown Los Angeles. It's green. It's nice. And the color and the life that Disclosure Fest brings to downtown Los Angeles. It's an incredible event. So come and hang out with us. That is Saturday, June 18th. The links for everything are in the description box below. We have them over at the website and throughout social media. You can follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. That's right. Follow me on Twitter for all that conspiracy UFO stuff. Yeah, follow me on Twitter. If you want to check out my world of guitars, follow me on Instagram, Jimmy Church Radio, right there on Instagram. Head over there and check that out. It's a lot of fun. Somebody posted on Instagram. I'm still figuring Instagram out. Said, hey, Jimmy, man, post some UFO stuff here. Nope. Not gonna do it. I'm not. That is just guitars and music. Still figuring out my way of navigating through that on how I want to handle it. I'm not an Instagrammer. You know, I'm a complete virgin to this. I have no idea how it runs, how it works, what people do, what are the ethics, what are the protocols, you know, what are the things that I don't know. I'm just doing my thing, my way. And you can go and check it out, Jimmy Church Radio, over on Instagram. Hashtag F2B is the sandbox right here in Twitter, which is right up in front of me. Ken Priest, again, causing trouble. And come and hang out with us over in the sandbox. And hello to everybody listening and watching all around the world. Lots of breaking news today because tonight, let's get to the breaking news. I need like a breaking news button. I need one of those, you know, like the typewriter in the press, breaking news. And the music, the breaking news music. And I should just put that on a button and have that. Or is that too radio-ish? Is that taking things a step too far? Let's get to the breaking news. Because there might be a meteor shower emerging from Hercules tonight, right after the show. So keep your face facing the skies. Astronomers are keeping an eye on shards of a broken up comet. That comet is called 73P Schwarzmann-Wachmann 3, also known as SW3, to see that if it generates a stream of space rocks blasting into Earth's atmosphere. NASA astronomer Bill Cook called the potential meteor shower a milestone or an all-or-nothing event. That's right. He said that in a NASA blog post. And but things that are working in our favor include the new moon, which means that it's going to be nice and dark outside, and the fact that Hercules rides high in the sky overnight, away from atmospheric interference, low on the horizon. Now, see, so this comet broke up, and Earth is going through its debris trail. That's it's happening like this, right? Okay, so it should be spectacular. It could be nothing, but we'll find out tonight after the show. I'm going to be out there. You know it. All right. Now, a team of archaeologists have discovered a network of passageways under a more than 3,000-year-old temple in the Peruvian Andes Mountains. Chavan de Honter Temple, located in the north-central Andes, was once a religious and an administrative center for the people across the region. The passageways were found earlier in May, according to John Rick, an archaeologist at Stanford University who is involved in the excavation. located 3,200 meters above sea level. At least 35 underground passageways have been found over the years of excavations, which all connect with each other and were built between 1200 and 200 years BC. That's right there in the foothills of the Andes. Very exciting. More news to follow on this. Now, earlier today in Egypt displayed a trove of ancient artifacts dating back 2,500 years that the country's antiquities authorities said were recently unearthed at Saqqara near Cairo. The artifacts were showcased at the feet of the step pyramid of Djoser in Saqqara. According to Mustafa Waziri, head of the Supreme Council of Antiquities, the find includes 250 painted sarcophagi with well-preserved mummies inside each, 150 bronze statues of ancient deities and bronze vessels used in rituals of Isis, all from the late period of around 500 BC. The photographs are absolutely incredible. Well, it went down over the weekend in New York. A tabernacle valued at $2 million was stolen from a Catholic church in Brooklyn, and statues of angels flanking the altar were decapitated in the process. All of this according to police. Power tools were used to forcefully cut open the altar and access the 18-karat gold tabernacle. The New York City Police Department said everything today in their announcement. The theft occurred at the St. Augustine Roman Catholic Church in the Park Slope area sometime between 6:30 p.m. Thursday and 4 p.m. Saturday. All of this according to the New York Police Department. Incredible. Incredible. Well, the Mona Lisa is back in the news. Check this out. The Mona Lisa was the subject of attempted vandalism yesterday when a visitor to the world-famous Louvre Museum in Paris smeared frosting all over the Renaissance area painting's protective glass. Now, how would you pull that off? Well, the man, who appeared to wear a wig in videos of the incident shared on social media, which I have watched, approached the painting in a wheelchair. That's right, wheelchair access, before throwing a piece of cake at the artwork, according to the statement from the Louvre. Videos of the aftermath show him on foot, yeah, he was walking, with the wheelchair nearby. The man, 36 years old, was arrested and taken to a psychiatric infirmary in the police headquarters, according to the Paris prosecutor's office. He's a young dude, too. He's a young guy. Didn't look, it was kind of strange. He had a baseball hat on. You could see the wig. And he said, he's yelling, "I did this for the world. I did this for the world." Saw a couple of people get interviewed about the incident. They said, man, he just rolled up. He just had a piece of cake and just smashed it onto the glass, freaking everybody out. It was, it's bulletproof protective glass. So the cake wasn't going to do anything. There is no such thing as a happy Memorial Day. Yeah, Skyhawk, I hear you. I hear you. Let's get this show cracking. On this day in history, 1971, the United States unmanned space probe Mariner 9 is launched on a mission to gather scientific information on Mars. That's right. Orbited Mars for a couple of years. Yeah, infrared, taking pictures. When it first got there, it was a dust storm, so they didn't see much. But the pictures were amazing. 1971. Fader fact. All right. Did anybody go out Memorial Weekend here and check out Top Gun Maverick? The reviews have, it's like this film has gotten 10 out of 10. There's like nobody has not liked the film. It's supposed to be absolutely tremendous. And many are saying, when I say many, like everybody, like it's better than the original Top Gun. I can't imagine that. And I tried to find a way to stream it. I was going to do it illegally. Yeah, with the VPN, but I couldn't find it. So I haven't seen it yet. But I did get a Fader fact about Top Gun Maverick. So here's your Fader fact today. You ready? Unbelievable. It's unbelievable. Here we go. The United States Navy rented FA-18 Super Hornets for the movie Top Gun Maverick, and the studio had to pay $11,374 per hour per plane to have the advanced fighter jets for filming. But the rental contract stated that Tom Cruise was not allowed to touch the controls. And that's your Fader fact. That's a fact. That's a Fader fact. Race Hobbs, my man. Race Hobbs, I love you, brother. I love you, Race. That's going to get a like. That's going to get a like every time. I look like a special agent. I look like Top Gun Maverick right there. Iceman. All right. Tonight, very special guest Ross Coulthart joins us live from Australia to discuss the Capitol Hill UFO hearing. I'm going to get a full analysis out of Ross tonight. He's one of the best. There's that part. And I'm going to go do a little pre and post analysis on the hearings and what we can expect in the future as well. And of course, the reaction from around the world and media. He's one of the most important journalists, reporters, hosts, and authors in our community right now. And he's one of the biggest voices in Australia when it comes to journalism. And tonight, I can already tell you that it's going to be an amazing conversation coming up in just a bit with Ross. Tomorrow night, Billy Carson is here. We're going to be talking about the Black Knight satellite. Wednesday night, John Burroughs is with us. Another great show. What an amazing week here on Fade to Black. And then Thursday is another Fader night with open lines all night long. And then I head out to Detroit to hang out with Billy Carson. All right. So, man, I have not rested. I have not stopped. And talking about, well, let me hit this River Moon coffee. Cake for all. Man, did you hear that? I gulped. I didn't sip. I didn't go. I just gulped that down. Oh, man. Rivermoonwellness.com. Fade to Black blend. It's Memorial Weekend, and I want to first thank all of you. It is Memorial Day across the United States. And for those that are listening from all around the world, here in the United States, this is our Memorial Day. And where this is a day where we stop and remember those that men and women in service to our country in every branch of the military has done the ultimate sacrifice. And that's what this day is for. So we get our families together, we eat, we drink, and we're thankful, and that's what Memorial Day is all about. And I'm reminded of the reason why I'm bringing all of that up. And I do want to thank you for taking the time today. This is your day off, and maybe you've already celebrated and you've eaten, depending on where you are. And now you're in and you're here listening to the show. But you're here on this special day, and that's why I didn't want to take today off. And here's the deal. The reason why I'm bringing all of this up is that when I look back and I think about the Memorial Days of years past, and it seems like for some reason I can remember most of them. I don't remember every Christmas. Or Christmases that I just don't remember, or every birthday. But it seems like I can remember most Memorial Days. And that's because usually, and in my case, every time, it's everybody coming together. It's everybody coming together. And specifically for me, my father was in the Army band. He was band leader in the Army band. And so every Memorial Day, the Army band is playing somewhere. And so we will go out as a family and celebrate and things at a park. Maybe it's on base, maybe it's off base. And we would do that. So I would always remember. And there were Memorial Days with the Indianapolis 500, which takes place every year, the Indianapolis 500 on Memorial Day weekend. And my father with the Army band based out of Indianapolis, I think 2 years, if my memory is certainly one, maybe it was 2 years, my dad marched on the track before the race and with the Army band. And that was pretty cool, right? So, yeah, and it's everybody coming together. And it didn't matter. And looking back, I do not remember attitude about who you were, and especially on Memorial Day. Man, you know what? The neighbors got together. The people in the park got together. It didn't matter where you were from or why you were there. It none of that mattered. If you lost a son or a daughter or a father or a mother in service, and maybe that's why you were there. Maybe not. Maybe you were just there for just to be thankful and to appreciate the day, whatever. But nobody had attitude, right? And it just seems that today people have attitude for no reason. None. And I just don't get that part of it. And that same thing that is prevalent all around the world, all across this country, has infiltrated our UFO community. Now, suddenly, where this UFO community, and especially when I got started in this UFO community, there was no attitude. You checked your attitude at the door. This was about people speaking their mind, sharing experiences, and trying to figure out what is going on. It didn't matter your background, who you were, your age, your sex, none of that mattered. It was open, an open community. Now, we've been infiltrated, right? It's the same thing. It's across the board. It doesn't matter what part of the world you're in, what part of social media you're dealing with, what your hobbies are, what your things are, what you do for employment. It doesn't matter. It's everywhere. And it is now part of our UFO community. And the overarching view of the UFO community was we are trying to find answers. That's it. That's the goal here. The goal was never to fight and point fingers and cause trouble and no, you're always going to have the bad apple. Of course, you're going to have that bad apple in any group or community or town or city or country. It doesn't matter. It's the bell curve. But the UFO community, we policed ourselves. And the bad apples found their way to the door. And we always had an open mind and open conversation in this community. And there are those out there that don't want that now. They don't want you to have your own thoughts. Think about that. What is going on? Now, why would that be happening? I think it's external forces, to be honest with you. I don't think it's people from the UFO community that don't want you to have your own thought. It's that we've been infiltrated. And now, I don't spend my time on social media. I don't have the time to spend my time on social media. So I'm not out there monitoring everything. But what I do get is email. What I do get is phone calls. What I do get is private messages from people. Did you see this? Did you hear? Did you? And I'm thinking to myself, where is this coming from? Why is this happening? And all at the same time that we are having UFO hearings on Capitol Hill, right? We're having this huge movement forward. We're having discussions going down, not only in public on Capitol Hill, but in the media. Like for real, right? And this thing is happening. Apparently, somebody doesn't like it. Now, I know that there's going to be opposing forces, but it is very, very strange to me because I can assure you the people in this community that have been at this for a long time, that an experiencer of 40 or 50 years that has been just out there trying to figure out what is going on is not questioning, is not causing trouble. No, we need to move this thing forward. So that's my point about Memorial Day. It used to be it didn't matter. And now all of a sudden it matters who you are. No, our voices are our own. That's it. And it's the same thing in the UFO community. It used to feel different. And there is a direct attempt right now to get us fighting. And I just don't think it's going to be successful. That's not who the UFO community is. It's not. So think about that. This is Memorial Day. And Stephen, I think it was Stephen said, there is no happy Memorial Day. Yeah, there is. And you want me to tell you why? The fact that I am able to speak to you tonight is because somebody out there made sure our freedom stayed in place. Think about that. And if you are a voice of dissent, and maybe you are against all of that, well, you are able to speak that voice of dissent because somebody has allowed that to happen and has given the ultimate sacrifice for that. So think about that. That's why this is Memorial Day, and I am here with you. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight on this very program, live from Australia, Ross Coulthart is joining us. We are going to be discussing the Capitol Hill UFO hearing. I'm going to get Ross's full analysis and then some tonight. Tomorrow night, Billy Carson is here. We're going to be talking about the Black Knight satellite. Wednesday night, John Burroughs. Wow, what a week on Fade to Black. Thursday night, another Fader night with open lines all night long. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. I'll be right back after this short break with our guest, Ross Coulthart. Stay right there.
This is Nicole Church, daughter of you-know-who, and you're listening to Fade to Black on JimmyChurchRadio.com and the Game Changer Network.
You're listening to Jimmy Church and Fade to Black on the X.
You're listening to Jimmy Church, Fade to Black.
Fade to Black will now pause for alien identification.
The station that talks the net.
Introducing the Game Changer blend from River Moon Coffee that delivers a customized blend made specifically for the Fadernauts. If the game is rigged, change the game. It's a bolder cup with some bite. Game Changer is the coffee of choice for those that prefer an organic dark roast that is slightly lighter and milder, but it's still dark. With wild notes of pecans and chocolate with a rich, balanced, full-bodied cup that is roasted to perfection for a great coffee to start your day, as an after-dinner coffee or anywhere in between. Artisan, small batch roasted to perfection. USDA certified organic, all River Moon coffee is freshly roasted and packaged in the USA. Just go to rivermooncoffee.com or click on the banners over on our site and use the promo code F2B Blend for 15% off of your order today. rivermooncoffee.com.
This is the only way forward.
This is Fade to Black. Make contact.
This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and you can get our podcast for just $2 per month. All you have to do is click on the podcast banner over at jimmychurchradio.com.
Do you have an interest in the paranormal? Then you'll love the unxnetwork.com. The X is your streaming audio and video for everything supernatural, strange, and mysterious, like UFOs, Bigfoot, ghosts, and so much more. From hosts like Jimmy Church, Whitley Strieber, Micah Hanks, and Christina Gomez. Visit the unxnetwork.com show page for a complete list of all the paranormal programs you'll find on the X. Be sure to follow us on Twitter for updates at KUNXDB. Follow our Facebook group, UNX Network. Find the podcast on Spotify, iHeart, Audible, and Apple Podcast. It's time. It's new. It's the X.
9 out of 10 geneticists agree.
Fade to Black is not your father's radio show on the Game Changer Radio Network.
Hi, this is Rob Reiner from Anvil, and you're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com.
What's up? I'm Chris. What up? This is Kyle Massey, and you're listening to Jimmy Church Radio.
All right, welcome back. Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. What a great week we have here on Fade to Black tonight. Ross Coulthart joins us live from Australia. Tomorrow night, Billy Carson is with us. Wednesday night, John Burroughs is here. And then Thursday night is another Fader night with open lines all night long. Ross is an investigative journalist, most recently for Australian news and current affairs program 60 Minutes on Channel 9. He has won 5 prestigious Walkley Journalism Awards, including the most coveted top award for Australian journalism, the Gold Walkley. His broadcast television investigative journalism has also won the top broadcast award, a Logie. In 2002, Ross won the gold medal at the New York Film Festival for Best International Report with renowned filmmaker Max Stahl. He is also the co-author of the 2 best-selling books, Dead Man Running and Above the Law, both exposés of organized crime in Australia with motorcycle gangs. His latest book, of course, is In Plain Sight, an investigation into UFOs and impossible science, where he reveals a story largely ignored by mainstream media, but right there in front of our eyes. I would like to welcome back to Fade to Black, live from Australia, Ross Coulthart. Ross, good evening, man. How you doing?
G'day, Jimmy. How are you, mate?
You already know. You're a time traveler. Come on, Ross.
It's nice to be back. It's a very interesting time, too, in the whole subject matter of UAPs, isn't it? Goodness me. Who would have thought that a year ago we would have seen members of America's intelligence services being called before a public hearing of the Congress? Momentous times.
Yeah, and I remember it was about a year ago when you were on this show, and how excited we were about what was going on back then, right? We had the UAP task force report about to launch. We knew about that, and your book had just come out, and your documentary, had just been released over in Australia, and there were big things happening. But we had no clue, did we? Had no idea that a year from then, we will be talking like we are right now. It's incredible.
It is amazing. I mean, I think we should acknowledge, although you'll soon find out I'm very skeptical and cynical about what took place in Congress last week, I think we should acknowledge the awesome momentousness of the fact that for the first time in 54 years, there's been public hearings in the Congress on UAPs, and people aren't giggling into their napkins anymore anytime the subject of UFOs, UAPs comes up. It's now, as a result of the UAP task force report that was tabled in your Congress last year, it is now official. They've done a complete reversal on 75 years of denial, and we are now looking at a US government that officially admits UAPs are real, they are potentially a national security issue, and they are definitely a flight safety issue. And I guess in that context, we went into last week's hearing optimistic, possibly a little bit too optimistic, that what we were going to see was a supine rollover by the defence and intelligence services in your country, admitting what, frankly, I think many people suspect, which is that the US government knows a lot more than it's letting on. I have to admit, I came away from last week's congressional hearing with the two witnesses, Ronald Moultrie and Scott Bray, sadly with the impression that they were walking back from many of the statements that had been made, key statements and findings that had been made by their own UAP task force. I got a sense of hubris, perhaps even, dare I say, arrogance, that two officials were kind of put out at the idea that they were having to account to Congress for this peripheral, flippant issue of UAPs when they're weighed down with the more momentous issues of the moment, such as Ukraine. It would have been good, I think, to see two intelligence officials come into the Congress more prepared, better briefed, and more able to answer questions, because I was left with the very strong impression that they hadn't done any research, they really hadn't done any preparation at all, and they were two of the most ill-informed intelligence officials who you could possibly have put before a congressional committee.
One would ask, was that done by design? And we can certainly circle back to that. Let me ask you about the moment, because I think that you just gave an overall assessment after the fact, where you've had a chance to stop and think about things. But what was your mindset going into it? What were your expectations?
Look, I'd been told by sources to temper my expectations. One of the explanations that I'm being given at the moment is we're in a war at the moment. It's not a declared war, but frankly, this is a proxy war that's being fought with Russia, another nuclear nation, and we're fighting it through Ukraine. And billions of dollars of resources and money expenditure is being devoted towards making sure that America is dominant in Ukraine. And as a result of that, I think a lot of the priorities, particularly the focus on UAPs that was very much an issue last year, are being pushed gently to the edge of the desk. And I don't think that's fair. I think the issue that comes out, and I was warned about before the hearing, was the heat really does need to be kept on. We need to hold these people to the fire. And it's not enough now that this matter is now before Congress. Congressmen and women, the representatives, the senators, they need to hear from the public that they regard this as an issue that is a voting issue. It's an issue that matters to them, and that they want to see a result. They want to see questions being asked that do actually get to the nub of the issue. Frankly, that wasn't done last week. Whatever you think of how these representatives conducted themselves, frankly, I think they did a lousy job in asking questions.
The opening statement. Okay, let's talk about Andre Carson for a second. What was interesting for me was his tweet that came out a few days prior to the hearing, where he expressly inserted UFOs into that tweet. He didn't say UAPs. He said unidentified aerial phenomena. And then in parentheses, he said UFOs. And I thought that was pretty interesting, where he wanted the public to know this is about UFOs, and you know what UFOs are. All right, so he does the tweet, and then he comes with his opening statement, and out of the gate brings up Blue Book and mentions Roswell. Now, this is before the hearing happened, right? This is his opening statement, and I thought to myself, okay, this is what they want to talk about. Is that the feeling that you got from do you think that that's what Andre Carson wanted?
Look, I think he was he's a politician. He was playing to his audience. And I think what we have to acknowledge here is the only reason these congressional hearings are happening is because the wheel that squeaks gets the grease. The public have said they think UFOs, UAPs, are an issue. And they've told that to their congressmen and women, their representatives, and their senators. And it's interesting because some of these people are presidential candidates. They're presidential aspirants. These are people who wouldn't risk their political careers by straying into territory that historically has been treated with stigma and ridicule. And the reason why, and the subtext to all of this, Jimmy, is I've been talking to staffers and indeed some of the representatives who are hopefully going to be able to ask some of the more scabrous questions that are going to come up. And what has motivated them, what has changed them, isn't so much the public telling them we want this heard in Congress. That plays a role. What has motivated them is very clever briefings, lobbying, and presentation of evidence that have been done in private hearings since at least 2018 by people like Lou Elizondo, Christopher Mellon. They've quietly, behind the scenes, been using their understanding of the Congress to approach individual congressmen and women, individual senators, and to explain to them why this issue is a national security issue. What I had a conversation with one individual who told me that when they walked out of seeing one of the videos that they'd been shown in a secure SCIF, secure compartmentalized information facility, one of the rooms that they use to brief congressmen and women and senators, they said their world had changed because of what they'd seen. Now, the thing that I thought was most telling wasn't the reference to Roswell in Andre Carson's opening. It was the fact that the default video that they defaulted to was possibly, I'm told, the least interesting video in the cupboard. That of all the videos that they could have selected, they weren't prepared. They hadn't actually provided a way to actually freeze on the object that they were saying was represented in that video, which was essentially a blurry metallic sphere that zooms by an aircraft, a fighter aircraft at high speed. The key issue was that was one of the least interesting videos, I'm told, of what the Congress has been shown. Why did they do that? Why did they deliberately pick a video that was the most banal, uninteresting of the lot? The one that gave the debunkers an opportunity to go, oh, is that the best you've got? Seriously, this is not going to be more blurry videos, is it? When I'm told, I mean, I've spoken to people who've seen the 23-minute video, this apocryphal video that is apparently incredibly high definition, which shows a very clear, structured craft, a machine, a technological object in the air, taken by a US military pilot, detected, by the way, on multiple sensor systems, incontrovertibly a solid object, a piece of technology. What I got worried about by the way the hearing was conducted was I got the distinct impression that what the two witnesses were trying to do was walk back from the admissions that had actually been made by their own UAP task force in June last year. An absolutely momentous acknowledgement was made by the UAP task force that one possibility that was open for consideration was that the technology that we were looking at here, it's not Russian, it's not Chinese, and it's not American public or black technology. It's someone else's, potentially something else's, perhaps some other beings. We just don't know. And what I was really struck by from the hearing last week was the sense that, frankly, they were giving the public the impression, look, you know, we're pulling out of the drawer one of these kind of videos and look at this, you know, really. I really wasn't given the impression that either man was sincere, well briefed, or across their brief at all in any way in what they were presenting to the Congress. And frankly, I thought both their conduct of themselves, they were either badly briefed, badly informed, ill-prepared, or worst, they came in with an intention to mislead and deceive. And I sincerely hope that's not the case. You know, here we are, what is it? It's Memorial Day over your way in America, where you honor your fallen dead. And I had a private tear for a good friend of mine, Lieutenant Colonel Todd Clark, who passed away in Afghanistan a few years back. And I was thinking of his family. And I'm thinking of the servicemen and women all around the world who've served for your country and those who've served in my country. And at the heart of why we're having these hearings is because of a concern for our fighting men and women, that this is being acknowledged for the first time as a potential national security threat. Now, I know that there are those of the Greer faction who assert that everything UFO, UAP is cuddly and lovely and that we can just warmly embrace whatever they are, whatever the phenomenon is. But I don't think we're in a position to be able to assert that, because fundamentally, anything, Jimmy, that represents a superior technology to the technology possessed by your country, of which my country is an ally, a very loyal and friendly ally, it's a threat. And we need to get to the bottom of that. And I couldn't think of a better day to be having a discussion like this with somebody like yourself on a platform like yours, where we can talk about why this matters. Because it does matter. Jimmy, people have died in engagements with UAPs. You know, it's a matter of public record from the UK Condign report that Russian pilots have died. I've been briefed by people about American pilots passing away in the course of engagements with UAPs, or at least never being seen again. This is a reality, and yet we sweep it under the carpet. We turn a blind eye to it. There's a phenomenon out there, an anomalous phenomenon out there, a technology which cannot yet be explained. And all I saw, frankly, from the two witnesses before the Congress last week was, sadly, a disingenuous response. You know, they claimed.
If they were, I just cut you off, Ross. I apologize for that. But I want to stay on your thought here. Because if they were genuine, and I'm talking about Bray and Moultrie, then that video would have been prepared. You're on Capitol Hill. So you have your easels in back of you. You've got your freeze frame posters that you're putting up, and you're showing examples from the video and what you need to look at, the still frame. You have a slow motion set up. You have that ready to go, and you are prepared. You can't go into a court of law, and this is testimony, right? Unprepared. You're not going to do that. And that's exactly what they did do. And I feel that they woke up that morning thinking two things. One, this is going to be a series of softballs. We're going to be able to phone this in. It's no big deal. And two, we got to show a video. All right, so let's just open up a folder and pick one out. And I think that was probably, and I'm pretty sure Occam's razor is on my side, right? That's the simplest idea of what actually went down. And I'm feeling pretty confident in that.
You know, one of the most telling moments for me, Jimmy, was when they were being asked about the link between UAPs and nuclear weapons. And then you and I spoke about this. I told you when we first met last year, I told you about how there are installations in my country where objects are noted in our national archives and Defense Department files that have been declassified. Strange, anomalous, solid objects have been seen hovering at a time of higher DEFCON alert over facilities that we know America uses to communicate with its nuclear submarines on my territory, on my country's territory. We know that there is recorded incidents right across the world of interactions between UAPs, UFOs, whatever the heck they are, and nuclear weapons. My good friend Robert Hastings has written a fantastic book called UFOs and Nukes, which exposed the extent of ICBM missile silos that had been visited by anomalous objects. And I interviewed for my documentary a lovely bloke called Robert Salas, who was a lieutenant, I think a lieutenant or a captain in the US Air Force, commanding an ICBM silo at Malmstrom Air Force Base in the 1970s. This is an incident that has been given evidence about before. This is an incident that is well recorded. This is an incident that, frankly, any individual working in intelligence in the United States ought properly to know about. And for those witnesses to assert, as they did, that they weren't aware of Malmstrom, they weren't aware of UFOs engaging with nuclear weapons, to me, frankly, they just looked inept. Did
you buy that denial? You know, when Bray looked over at Moultrie, remember, he goes, "You know about Malmstrom?" Moultrie's like, "What do you know about?" "No, I don't know anything about that."
Look, oddly enough, I do. I mean, we have a saying in my line of work, which is always assume a stuff up before a conspiracy. I mean, I do genuinely think that often incompetence and stupidity is the best reason for why something happens.
Sure.
And often, I mean, I've done stories where bureaucrats have actually said to me, "Look, Ross, I know it looks like a conspiracy, and I know there's been a stuff up here, but that's all it is. It's a stuff up." They use stronger language sometimes in my country. But the reality is, I just think these guys came in thinking it was all going to be a bit of a giggle. They hadn't done any research. They certainly hadn't read my book or listened to your podcasts at any time, Jimmy, and they'd be well advised to do so, frankly. I think a good dose of Fade to Black or my podcast Need to Know would be a really good lesson for them. They should actually learn a bit about their own history, because the US Department of Defense's own archives, the CIA's own archives, the Defense Intelligence Agency, the NSA's own archives record a long history, for example, of engagement between these weird, anomalous phenomena and nuclear weapons. So that's one issue. Another issue that bobbed up in the custard was, and this is another gotcha moment where, frankly, I really applaud the one representative that did his job properly was, I think it was Representative Gallagher. And he also asked about the Admiral Wilson document. Now, for the benefit of your listeners, this is a document that the Admiral Tom Wilson, the former head of the Defense Intelligence Agency, I preface everything here by saying, he says this document is not genuine. He says it's not true, that the events recorded in it didn't happen, and that no such meeting took place. But essentially, it records an alleged meeting between Dr. Eric Davis, now of the Aerospace Corporation, an extremely well-respected, eminent, highly qualified astrophysicist, and Admiral Tom Wilson, the immediately former director of the Defense Intelligence Agency. And it was essentially the final event in a long series of years of investigations into allegations that were precipitated by inquiries made by Dr. Stephen Greer and his organization, the Disclosure Project, where they came across an NRO, National Reconnaissance Office document that recorded the names of various code names of projects. And when Greer showed this document to Admiral Tom Wilson, who was then a deputy director of the DIA in 1997, Tom Wilson reportedly, according to 5 people in the room, pledged that he would go off and investigate the contents of this document to see whether he could identify any of the code names behind that document. Now, a good friend of mine, who I have to use a pseudonym for, called the Spaceman, was a very, very close friend of Edgar Mitchell, the Apollo 14 astronaut, the lunar module commander who led a lunar landing, one of your most respected national heroes. Edgar Mitchell is on record and has told my friend as well that he was present when a phone conversation was had with Admiral Tom Wilson in weeks subsequent to that 1997 meeting, where Tom Wilson described how his efforts to get to the bottom of these code names were actively frustrated by people inside the Defense Department, and that he discovered that there was indeed, allegedly, a secret program operating within the United States government to back-engineer non-human, yes, alien technology. One hell of an allegation. But as you and I both know, a document surfaced from the estate of Dr. Edgar Mitchell in 2018, And that was actually leaked by my friend, the spaceman, who still has possession of that document. And the spaceman told me that he was aware of the provenance of that document, that it came from Edgar Mitchell's personal archive, and that it had been provided to Edgar Mitchell when he was a member of the Science Advisory Board of the National Institute of Discovery Science, which was a body set up by Robert Bigelow, the space entrepreneur, to investigate this anomalous phenomena that we call UAPs, UFOs, and the paranormal. Anyway, the long and the short of it was that this document that was found inside Edgar Mitchell's estate described astonishing things, astonishing allegations. And again, I emphasize the Admiral, the good Admiral, Admiral Tom Wilson, who I respect, by the way. I think he's an extremely honourable and decent, loyal, patriotic American serviceman, now retired. He allegedly, according to this document, described to Dr. Eric Davis, whilst they were sitting in a car park outside EG&G, the people who serviced Area 51 at Las Vegas. What an amazing location to have a conversation like this.
Janet Airlines of all.
I know.
Places. Yeah.
He allegedly, according to this document, described in a very long-winded apparent transcript of their conversation a crash retrieval program that he had discovered inside the US government that was secretly hiding recovered flying saucers being secreted in private aerospace, hidden in a private aerospace company behind special access programs that were plausibly denied by the US government. An incredible allegation. And the incredible thing about it was, when confronted about this document, both the man who sent it to Edgar Mitchell, Dr. Hal Puthoff, and the man who purportedly wrote it, Dr. Eric Davis, have never done anything to deny the truth and the veracity of its authenticity. And indeed, privately, I've been told by various people that that document is a genuine document. I can't prove that, because without Tom Wilson's confirmation and corroboration, as a journalist, I can't rely on it. But this is something, this incredible smoking gun document, it should at least be something that any competent intelligence official would know about, because it has been, as you know and as I know, at the forefront of allegations of a cover-up inside the US intelligence community for the last 4 or 5 years. And for two intelligence officials to come before the Congress and testify, as they did, Admiral Wilson memo? Oh, no, don't know anything about that. Oh, do you know anything about that? No, don't know anything about it. What a load of bullshit.
Yeah,
Seriously.
yeah, it is. It was a load. And here's the thing. I've got 15 seconds, Ross, before the break. By Gallagher bringing it into the public record, now in future hearings, nobody can say that they don't know about the document, right?
And that's where it gets interesting, because this is why bringing stuff to Congress matters. And I've seen this happen in Australia, Jimmy. I don't know, by the way. I don't know for sure that the Admiral Wilson document is an authentic document. I am told by Admiral Tom Wilson's colleagues that he is an honourable, decent man, not the sort of person who would lie, perjure himself under oath before Congress. And he has already told my friend Billy Cox, who's an extremely reputable journalist who's chased this issue down in the past, he's told Billy that he will tell the Congress under oath what he's already told Billy and what he's already told me, which is the document's not authentic and it doesn't represent an accurate and fair reflection of events. But that at least can now be asked, because Representative Gallagher had the foresight, the intelligence and the perspicacity to actually put it before the Congress. That's why this matters. They're now on notice that they have to answer this question. And that's why at some stage in the next few months, whatever the answer is, they're now, as Lou Elizondo told me last week on my own podcast, Need to Know, he told me they've now painted themselves into a corner. This is why this is significant. Every single statement that these individuals make under oath to the Congress is slowly bricking themselves into a position. That's why this matters, because they can then be held to account and measured against those statements as the revelations before the Congress continue, which you and I both know they will.
Let's take our break right here. Our guest tonight, the one and only Ross Coulthart, live from Australia. This is Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Want to remind everybody, tomorrow night, I have Billy Carson with us. Wednesday night, John Burroughs. Thursday night is another Fader night with open lines all night long. This is Fade to Black on the UNX and Game Changer Networks. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. We will be right back after this short break. Stay with us.
This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network.
Your 1 million gigawatt paranormal powerhouse, KUNX-DB, VX.
This is Billy Carson, founder and CEO of ForbiddenKnowledge.tv. ForbiddenKnowledge.tv is the fastest growing and one of the most watched networks in the world. And I would like to personally invite you to check out our expanding library of TV, film, lectures, and special presentations. ForbiddenKnowledge.tv has over 6,000 videos covering lost history, health, UFOs, spirituality, and our future. We are committed to our community, and with my personal invitation, you can right now get your own free 30-day membership at ForbiddenKnowledge.tv. Your own library of information starts today at ForbiddenKnowledge.tv.
Because you never got that pony you always wanted. Damn it. Jimmy Church and Fade to Black on the Game Changer Network.
Listen, I know, and you know, that you've always wanted your first crystal skull. Or maybe you're a collector just like me, but you just don't know where to go to find the real thing. Then I met Carolyn Ford over at EinsteinTheCrystalSkull.com. Carolyn is the guardian of Einstein, one of the most respected ancient crystal skulls in the world. All of her unique skulls have been imprinted sitting with Einstein in his sacred lodge and are carved from the finest gemstone and materials. Imprinting is the process of receiving the ancient wisdom from the master skull or master computer, Einstein, the ancient crystal skull. To see Carolyn's current collection of crystal skulls, just visit her store at EinsteinTheCrystalSkull.com or click on the banner over on our site. Don't forget to use the promo code Jimmy at checkout to receive 10% off of your order today. That's promo code Jimmy. Finding your first or next crystal skull is easy. Just visit EinsteinTheCrystalSkull.com.
Hello, I'm Katie, and you're listening to my main man, Jimmy Church, on JimmyChurchRadio.com.
Hi, this is Ray Hobbs here, repping the planet, and you're listening to my good friend, Jimmy Church, Fade to Black.
This is Toby Kebbell. You're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com. Don't hurt me, Jimmy. I'm only little.
Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier, and this is Ari Gold. We're the Honey Brothers.
Yes.
We're also Honey Brothers. Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier, and I'm Ari Gold. We're the Honey Brothers, and you're listening to Jimmy Church. The Revolution.
This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and you can become an official Fadernaut by just going to our membership section at JimmyChurchRadio.com.
Hello, this is Serena Wright Taylor from Conscious Life Expo, and you're listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church, who holds the Lucky Pony record for the best astrological chart since 1963. True story.
This is Micah Hanks of the Gralien Report, and you're listening to Jimmy Church on Fade to Black.
Welcome back. Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, live from Australia, Ross Coulthart is joining us. We're discussing the UFO hearings that took place on May 17th, Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C., and also what could possibly be coming up in the very near future. We'll jump into some of that, too, as well. And, Ross, what I wanted to do is I want to go back just a little bit into the hearing there were a couple of things. I felt that you're the guest. I don't want to insert my opinion here. That's not what the question is. That's bad journalism. But I have to say it, which is I felt that the hearing had two scenes. Scene one, the first half of the hearing, I think that Bray and Moultrie were trying to keep this into a drone territory or a China-Russia technology conversation. And the representatives, some of them, tried to get it back onto a UFO or extraterrestrial conversation. And that was the second half of the hearing. And in the beginning of the hearing, Representative Crawford said that the UAP task force is not about finding alien spacecraft. And later on in the hearing, Crawford did an about face. We'll circle back to that. But Schiff, who is, he's the chair, he wasn't part of the committee, but he was there and he attended. And of course, he asked a couple of questions. And one of them, he brings up the propulsion issue. And then Dr. Wenstrup brought up 180-degree, 90-degree turns, all of this in the UAP task force report. And then right after that, Hines comes in and brings up amateur conspiracy theory groups, right? And tried to bring this around that there is misinformation and disinformation being put out by, and I'm quoting him, amateur UFO groups, right? And I'm not sure who he was talking about, MUFON maybe, and that this kind of misinformation and disinformation needs to be deterred. Now, that sounds like censorship to me. And
I think the one that blew me away, I think his name's Lahoud, Representative Lahoud. And he practically invited the two guests, the two witnesses, to offer an opinion on the best way to prosecute and in some way punish people who dare to question the veracity of the intelligence establishment on these issues. I was just gobsmacked. I was gobsmacked at the, we call them googly questions that were being offered by the representatives. They weren't trying. And let me give you a couple of examples, Jimmy, because I really do.
But let me ask you this, though, and I want to please. I want to hear your answer. But as a journalist, when Himes and LaHood bring up censorship and possible criminal repercussions for just having an opinion or asking questions, it's suddenly a criminal offense. As a journalist, you've got to raise every red flag, right?
Look, it was just appalling, and it reeked to me of a prearranged question. It reeked to me of, hey, you guys, I'm going to ask you a really softball question that you're just going to love. Here's a free kick for you. Let's have a kick at these annoying UFO people who are asking all these wacky conspiracy-driven questions that are embarrassing you guys in the national defense establishment. I thought it was crazy. I mean, let's just talk for a moment about what the UAP task force report itself, albeit a short document, what it admitted last year. It admitted in a very qualified way, but it fundamentally admitted that there is a technology of some kind that is anomalous, that is not American, it's not Russian, it's not Chinese, it's none of our known adversaries, it's not Black American technology hidden in the black somewhere. It's doing what they've called the 5 observables, technology that is way beyond known human science. Incredible instantaneous velocity going from 0 to 10,000 miles an hour in the blink of an eye. Hypersonic maneuvers, stealth, it's concealing itself. It's going transmedium. It's going from the atmosphere to the ocean with very little change in velocity and displacing water through the ocean at speeds that some people have described as high as faster than the speed of sound underwater. Incredible. Are you still there, Jimmy? I've seemed to have lost you. Yeah. But the thing that blows me away is this is an admission now that there is a technology operating on our planet which is not known, that nobody can explain. And what the Congress is now in a position to be able to do is to elicit answers from the representatives that are coming forward from the Defense Department and the intelligence community to answer that question. And frankly, I just thought what I saw there was an attempt at evasion and dissembling. I saw obfuscation. I saw, quite frankly, I like to think the best of our servicemen and women. I admire, I've had briefings from a lot of people in your intelligence community as a journalist doing stories about terrorism or wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. I've seen how good your people are on a front line and in a hot zone. You know, you should be very, very proud of your armed services. You're extremely well served by your men and women in uniform. But without wanting to speak unfairly ill of people in the intelligence community, I was very disappointed and shocked that two people coming before the Congress for the first time in over half a century have basically failed to brief themselves properly about the issues that they were coming to talk about. This wasn't an opportunity for a free kick at a UFO group. We are well beyond the flippant and frankly ridiculous observation that some people have made in the debunking world that this is all nonsense and easily dismissed. The Neil deGrasse Tysons, you know, all of the other scientists who choose to take an extremely unscientific, unobjective, totally subjective way of approaching this issue, just to dismiss it out of hand and say, look, you know, extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. You know, frankly, we're not going there until somebody provides us with the proof. We are now at a stage where the proof has been provided. The United States has acknowledged there is a reality here. There is an anomalous phenomena that cannot be explained, or at least that's their official position. I don't believe that, frankly. I think they know a lot more than they're letting on.
The turning point for me, I want your thoughts on Representative Welch, because Welch apparently had just had enough of drone talk, right? in China and Russia. And he says, and I quite honestly almost fell out of my chair when he said, it's a big universe, man. And right when he said that, I knew he was about to go there. And he did. He said that there may be visits by ET and extraterrestrial life. His words. And the response from Moultrie, which was, we're working with NASA to search for extraterrestrial life. He does his dance. And then Welch comes back with, okay, you don't want to talk about it now in the public hearing. But what about later this afternoon in the classified briefing? Are you going to tell us about ET and extraterrestrial life visiting this planet? And I thought that was absolutely extraordinary and definitely put Bray and Moultrie on the spot for an answer in the classified briefing.
Well, you see, I hope that they were told something about that in the classified briefing. I mean, for what it's worth, Jimmy, I think the extraterrestrial hypothesis, the idea that what we're talking about here is a life from another universe or another part of the galaxy, I think that's the least plausible explanation. More and more, I get the impression that whatever this is, it's been here a long time. It shares this planet with us. It's not necessarily visiting. It's here too. It lives here. But whatever it is, it's intelligent and it's technologically advanced, way technologically advanced to us. And this is the thing that I found was the subtext behind all of this, because whilst you've got this momentous context of admissions that have been made by the UAP task force and by other reports and investigations, which essentially out of the UAPTF, they admitted they could not explain, despite exhaustive investigation, all but one of 144 incidents. They were unable to provide an explanation. And they've looked at anomalous weather phenomena. They've looked at drones. They've looked at whether or not it's a weather event or something like that, or another misidentified aircraft. And the UAP task force was not able to provide an explanation. And for me, the one moment that really, frankly, I was just yelling at the screen by this stage was when I think it was Moultrie or Bray basically said they've investigated the video that he was showing, that he was referring to, and I think it involved a pyramid over a ship, which I think is the USS Russell incident. And this is a video that was released by Jeremy Corbell, quite laudably, in a great scoop by Jeremy. And Jeremy basically presented evidence that has since been attacked by many debunkers, suggesting, that this is bokeh, that this is a distortion caused by night vision goggles looking through an SLR, single lens reflex camera lens, and that essentially what was hovering over the vessel wasn't actually a pyramid or a triangle. It was essentially the two witnesses left us with the impression it was essentially a drone or some kind of UAV or quadcopter. Now, this assertion is made when we know the USS Russell was in the middle of the open ocean. There were no other ships in the area. And indeed, there have been declassified documents that have been released on FOI relating to at least some of these drone incidents, so-called, on US Navy vessels, where they're in the open ocean, way out to sea. And they've even gone and searched the adjoining, I think one was a cargo vessel that was coming to Australia, and they couldn't find any drones on that vessel. There was nothing to support the contention that these were commercially available drones that were flying above US Navy vessels in the middle of the open ocean. But what just gobsmacked me was that the representatives sat there like little lambs when they were fed this line by two witnesses from the defense intelligence community. And they didn't follow up and say, okay, well, if it was drones, if, as you say, it was drones, who's got drone technology like this? Where's this drone technology coming from?
That's right.
Because these drones were and are recorded doing extraordinary things. I'm waiting to hear Jeremy's response. I'm going to give Jeremy the benefit of the doubt because I suspect that he's not going to cop this bokeh explanation, which I know a good friend and quite rightly a laudable skeptic, Mick West, has jumped upon. Mick's made much of this. He's suggested that a lot of these videos of objects hovering over Navy decks are just drones. They're just UAVs that have been distorted through the lenses that they're using to film them, more often than not night vision goggle lenses. And what annoyed me was, knowing what I know from my sources, this impression that was left with the Congress, the representatives and the watching public was, don't worry, guys. This is all going to turn out to be drones and UAVs. It's only a matter of time before we get an explanation that satisfies inquiring, curious minds. And look, we've looked at this particular video that described a triangle or a pyramid hovering over the deck, and it was a bokeh effect. It was a distortion caused by night vision goggles. But no attempt to explain the mass swarms of drones that have now been recorded in multiple incidents to be plaguing US Navy vessels. Snoopy teams, which are the teams that are deployed when there are unidentified craft hovering near US Navy vessels, were deployed, and they still record in the FOI documents that these are UAPs, UAVs, unidentified vehicles of some kind near US Navy vessels. To me, what shocked me was the lack of curiosity by the representatives. They had a glorious opportunity to follow up and go, okay, sir, if it was a drone, as you say, why do you say it was a drone? What kind of drone was it? Have you satisfied yourself that it was a drone? What kind of drone can hover for hours over a US Navy ship, do the maneuvers that these things have been witnessed doing?
In the open ocean. Yeah, in the open ocean. There is another line of questioning that happened right about this time, which came in from Representative Schiff, when he says, are you guys only interested, I'm paraphrasing, are you guys only interested in the low-hanging fruit, on the stuff that you can just readily identify and that is easy to investigate? Or are you interested in taking this a step further and really scientifically investigating the stuff that you can't explain? And I thought that was a great question in this line of questioning that was happening at that time.
Yeah, I do too. And frankly, I mean, what is needed is good data. But the irony is, as we all know, one of the things I want to address that by responding to a question that was asked at one stage during the hearing about what has happened since Project Blue Book. So I think it was again Representative Gallagher, who I'm going to give a gold star for his questioning. And he basically asked, what have been the initiatives that the DOD or DOD contractors have done since Project Blue Book ended, which was in 1969, 1970, and before ATIP's beginning? Was there anything predating Project Blue Book? And Scott Bray actually answered. He said, I can't speak to what may have predated Project Blue Book. I'm familiar with Blue Book. I'm familiar with ATIP. I haven't seen other documented studies that have been done by DOD in that regard. Now I'm sorry, I don't like to reflect ill on your representatives, but that was a very disingenuous answer, because it's on the public record that there have been multiple research done into UAPs by the US Defense Department, different three-letter agencies, for the past 50, 60 years since Project Blue Book. So for him to assert that he's not aware of anything in between Project Blue Book and ATIP, the Pentagon's secret UFO program that allegedly happened between 2008 and 2012, Scott Bray basically said, I'm not aware of anything that's official that was done in between those two. It hasn't been brought to my attention. Now, frankly, that reeks to me of an official that didn't do his job. He didn't read his brief. If you know, as he did, that you're about to give evidence to the Congress, you bloody well do your homework. You don't come in ill-prepared. And frankly, in my country, if an official came in and said that he wasn't aware of UFO studies that had been done in the past 50 years, and he knew he was coming to the Congress to answer for the past 50 years of what's been happening with UFOs, UAPs, he'd probably get the sack. So that, to me, is how serious this is. The Congress needs to put these people on notice that if they come before the Congress again and try and evade and dissemble and obfuscate in how they answer questions, they're going to lose their jobs, or they're going to be found in contempt of Congress. Because this isn't a friendly engagement here. This shouldn't be a friendly engagement. Because even with the admissions that have been made by the UAP task force last year, it's now clear Congress has been lied to. It's been deceived. Don't forget, Jimmy, that President Barack Obama put out a press release in 2011 that after making inquiries with the various government agencies, including presumably the Defense Department, they responded to a public petition demanding to know if there was any kind of cover-up about UAPs, whether the US government was in contact with any kind of non-human intelligence, or whether they'd been in touch with aliens or some kind of intelligence. Now, we now know for a fact that the US government has been aware for ever since at least Project Blue Book, but right up to the present day. Not only have they been engaging with this phenomenon, studying it, they've been trying to bring these objects down. They've been, I believe, I'm pretty sure, trying to shoot them down. I noticed they denied that in that hearing before the Congress. But the other thing that I was really shocked by, and I was amazed they took this position, was when the question was asked about retrieved technology.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it came from Mike Gallagher. And it was a very clumsily asked question, but he said, okay, are you aware of any other DOD or DOD contract programs focused on UAP from a technological engineering perspective? By that, I mean, are you aware of any technology initiatives focused on this topic other than initiatives focused on the individual case investigation events? Scott Bray answered, I'm not aware of any contractual programs that are focused on anything related to this other than what we're doing in the Navy task force.
And how about Moultrie's answer to that?
What did he say? I can't remember.
He said, we would only know about contracts because there could be arrangements with people without contracts that have an interest in this subject.
And let's go back to the Wilson document for a moment, Jimmy, because the explicit allegation in the Wilson document is that very early on, at a time when the US government became aware that the Department of Energy, where this allegedly was hidden, was going to become the subject of FOI, Freedom of Information laws, a decision was made to hand over this technology to private aerospace. And it may very well be that there is no official, contractual, or programmatic effort that is underway. But how hard would it have been for a representative of the US Congress to ask a representative of the US military, listen, let's cut the BS. Are you aware of any technology that is not human technology held either by the US government or by any US government agency or by any aerospace defense contractor or any private institution? Period. Answer that question.
You know who should... Bill Richardson. I think Bill Richardson would be a great witness to bring forward because not only is he a representative out of New Mexico, right, and Roswell, and ask for information on this, but he went on to head the Department of Energy. And wouldn't he be the right guy to put forward? And I think, you know what? I like Bill. I think at this point in his life, he may open up about this. I think he has something to say.
I hope so, and I certainly hope people like that are called. And it's funny because I noticed Gallagher came back with the question a second time, and he said, just to confirm, you're not aware of any technology or any engineering resources that have been focused on these efforts beside what we've mentioned today? And then again, Mr. Bray said, once again, I'll say no contractual or programmatic efforts. What the hell does that mean? Why didn't Mike Gallagher or any of the congressional committee come back and say, hey, listen, let's just cut the BS for a moment.
Right.
What the public wants to know, are you hiding non-human technology anywhere, either in the government or out? Can you categorically deny that you know about recovered technology? Why was that question so hard?
It's the easiest question. Absolutely. Let's take our break right here, Ross. So much to cover tonight, and I promise everybody I will try to get it all in. Ross and I knew coming into the show tonight we were going to run out of time, but we're going to make it happen. This is Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, live from Australia, Ross Coulthart. We are discussing the UFO hearing May 17th on Capitol Hill. Stay with us. We'll be right back after this short break.
Way out here, we listen to Jimmy Church.
You're listening to Fade to Black.
You're listening to Jimmy Church and Fade to Black on the X.
¿Qué tal, mis amigos? Yo soy Mario Carson, el tiburón, y los invito para que escuchen a mi buen amigo Jimmy Church Radio. ¡Claro que sí!
This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and this year, June 18th, 2022, the Disclosure Fest Foundation presents the Mass Meditation Initiative. It's Saturday, June 18th from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m., one day only at the Los Angeles State Historic Park in downtown Los Angeles, California, right next to Chinatown. I'm hosting the event again this year with music performances by Trevor Hall, The Desert Dwellers, Poran Key, and many, many more on 4 separate stages. There's 16 stages in total, over 30 acres in downtown Los Angeles, with vendors and tents and presentations and workshops with Billy Carson, Adam Apollo, Lori Spagna, Laura Eisenhower, Brad Olson, David Palmer, and many, many more. It's all simple to do. Just go to disclosurefest.org for all of your tickets, information, and the full schedule of the day's events. Again, disclosurefest.org. Do you want to be an official Fade or Not? Of course you do. This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black. Just go to our membership section at jimmychurchradio.com. Fade or Nots. When you think about the future of our country and where we're headed, do you wonder about the food supply? I do. Disruptions in the food supply chain could be disastrous, and they usually occur with little warning. That's why the smartest thing you can do today is to stockpile emergency food, water, and other essentials. I personally recommend My Patriot Supply. They're the nation's largest emergency preparedness company, serving millions of customers for more than a decade. In fact, they're the only source my family trusts for our preparedness plan. You should too. Right now, save 20% off a full 4-week supply of delicious meals that provide 2,000 calories a day. Saving 20% helps too, doesn't it? Especially now. So go to preparewithjimmy.com and get ready. That's preparewithjimmy.com. There's no time to lose. Do it now.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7, with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
You listen to us, and we listen to you. And so does the CIA.
You are listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
Oi, oi, I'm Reese Evans. You're listening to Jimmy Church. This is Revolution. The revolution will not be televised. The revolution is on radio. Ciao.
Welcome back. Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church, tonight live from Australia. Ross Coulthart is with us. And one of the things about Ross, this is the deal. Ross quickly has become one of the faces that represent this community, Ross, and I want to thank you for that. But I also want to tell the audience how cool Ross is. He doesn't talk about this a lot, but Ross was also the lead singer for a heavy metal band back in the 80s. And I've got pictures, Ross, so I will hold you to the fire on that one. But I just want to thank you. The community has generated enormous respect for you and your position on this, and it's not easy in the world of journalism to dig your heels in on a subject as sensitive as the UFO enigma and what actually may be going on. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
And now I want to go a little post hearing, and I want to get to the comments from Representative Burchett. And considering that he's an elected official, but he wasn't a part of the committee, he was an audience member, he was an attendee. And post hearing, he gets in front of the camera and lets loose. He was pretty angry, and he's pointing his finger. And then he pulled back and said, "I'm not pointing at you. I'm not pointing at you." He apologized. That's how angry he was. But he said, and I have to paraphrase a little bit, but I think the direct quote was something similar to, "This is a cover-up by our U.S. government. This is deception, and the American people need to know the truth. This hearing was a sham, and this cover-up has to end. Now, that was a pretty direct statement from an elected official. And were you surprised by Burchett's comments?
No, I wasn't surprised. I've had similar conversations with other congressmen, congresswomen, and senators. I think there is a view on the Congress that they've been lied to, that they've been misled. Look, frankly, this is the thing that annoys me, Jimmy, is, as you rightly observe, it's quite difficult being a member of the mainstream media. I'm an investigative journalist who's worked for over 35 years covering stories. I've done a lot of very serious investigations into terrorism, national security issues, political corruption. I know how bureaucracies operate. I know how government bureaucrats react when they're confronted with misfeasance or impropriety or worse, corruption in their administration. And the simple fact is, it's on the public record now. There's been so many files declassified, so much information released. When I was writing my book, I was gobsmacked at what, under the Clinton administration, the CIA was forced to reveal from its own archives of what it knew about the phenomenon and the work that it had done, not only into the phenomenon, but also what's politely and dismissively often referred to as the paranormal. It's quite clear that there is a body of thought inside the defense, national security establishment of the United States, and I've informed myself by talking to people directly about this, that takes this phenomenon very, very seriously. And yet, for much of the last, let's say, since the end of the Robertson panel in the early 50s, there's been a deliberate, and this is articulated, it's actually expressly stated in documents that are declassified from your government's files. It shows that a deliberate decision was taken by officials in your government, mainly in the CIA and the US Air Force, to ridicule, stigmatize the subject, to, let's call it for what it is, mislead the American public. The public was told that UFOs, UAPs, are a subject to be ridiculed, attacked, mocked, most of all, never taken seriously. When all along, this fiction that has been maintained that the US government doesn't regard UAPs as an issue of national security or a threat to flight safety, it was blown out of the water by the admissions made by the UAP task force and by the quite courageous statements made by people like Christopher Mellon, the former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense, Lou Elizondo, the former head of the Pentagon UFO program, and many other witnesses who've come forward who've basically stated, this is real. This is a national security concern. It is, frankly, it is a potential threat. So why have we been misled the way we have been? If there's nothing to hide, why have they gone to such incredible lengths to conceal what they know? And why are they still doing it? Like, why did these two officials get before the Congress last week? And I think leave the audience with the very firm opinion that, look, it's only a matter of time. These are probably drones. It can probably be prosaically explained. Leave it with us. We're competent military officials. We've got a task force underway. Don't worry. Everything's all right. Nothing to worry about. Don't worry your tiny little heads. Go away. We'll deal with this in private hearings because there are sources, means, and methods that we can't reveal. Frankly, we're way past that now. You've got pilots like Dave Fravor, Alex Dietrich, who bravely came forward and risked their reputations by speaking publicly, definitively about what they saw. They state they saw an object with no visible propulsion system doing hypersonic maneuvers, instantaneous velocity, deploying stealth, showing clearly some kind of psychotronic ability to actually know where their cap point was so that they could maneuver to that cap point before they even flew there. Something intelligent was demonstrating a capacity far beyond known human technology. And I'm not a Pentagon security planner. I thank God I'm not responsible for trying to defend your country against the threats that you face or that my country faces. And I hold my hat out. I really admire the servicemen and women who do this, particularly the officials at the top end of your Pentagon and my intelligence services. It's a hell of a job. But for the fiction to be maintained still before the Congress that this is something that can perhaps be prosaically explained, don't worry your tiny little heads about it. We're way past that now. And I can tell you there is a rapacious hunger, a demand from congressmen, congresswomen, senators to get to the bottom of this because, frankly, they know they've been lied to. And I don't often call it as a journalist that something's been a conspiracy because we're taught as investigators not to believe in conspiracies. Normally it's a screw up. But I think that a decision was made during the Cold War that for a national security reason, they decided not to reveal the full extent of what the US government knows. And I know because I'm talking to them. There is a faction inside the US defense and intelligence community that wants you, all of us, to know the truth.
Well, that's the job of a journalist, and it's in our Constitution. The press, the freedom of the press is there to put everything else in check. That's it. And to ask those questions. When I was going to school for broadcasting, Ross, you're going to laugh at this because you've experienced this. But I'm in school, and one of our teachers was from CNN. Okay, I'm not going to say who, but I said, so what if you had a story about a UFO? Nope. And I said, no, but you've got photographs, you got a video, and there's this thing, and what do? Do you take it to the news director? I would never. I said, what do you mean? No, that's the kiss of death in broadcasting. And that's what that's what I'm being instructed in school. And that is the broad outlook and the stigma behind this, not only in public, but certainly in the world of broadcasting where you just can't touch this. It's a very difficult, it's a career ender.
And it's a career ender because somebody in your government, and I suspect also in my government, made a decision 50, 60, 70 years ago to shut it down. And for no good reason. Because the thing I find fascinating, and when Bryce Zabel and I do our podcast, Need to Know, what we try to do is tell people why history matters, why it's important for people to understand the history. So what many Americans don't know is we've been here before, Jimmy. We've had congressional hearings before. And the public was dissembled and lied to, and officials obfuscated and avoided questions, as they're doing now. And they got away with it for another 60 years. And they'll do that again if they can get away with it. And I suspect it's because some people in the defense establishment know that there's going to have to be a reckoning. And they don't want to be around when that happens. And, I think it was done possibly for the best reasons. But throughout the 40s and the early 50s, until roughly the time of the Washington flyover, incontrovertibly, a historical incident that was recorded on radar, seen by many thousands of people, anomalous phenomena, solid objects moved across the sky over Washington. They didn't land on the White House lawn, but they put on over 2 weeks one hell of a display for the United States government and its military. And I don't think it's any coincidence that from that moment on, things began to change. A decision was made inside the US national security establishment to essentially shut down this issue from public comment. And they chose a very powerful weapon. They know that you Americans don't like being told that you're not allowed to know something. They know that you're very good at digging out secrets. So they used the most powerful weapon of all, ridicule, mockery. And they laughed at it. They treated the phenomenon with derision, and it worked. And for much of the last 60 years, that's how media have treated this subject matter. I mean, I appeared on the network that I actually work for the other day on a Sunday morning, and we had a long interview with some good friends of mine who do the show. But the producer behind the scenes played X-Files music and showed, your classic silly-looking flying saucers on the screen behind. And what that was is a kind of a code that's been used for years in the media unconsciously, where editors, executive producers, and I've done this. I freely admit I've done this before I engaged with this subject and started researching it. You'd just treat it as a joke and you'd laugh and you'd have this kind of ironic smile on your face when you started talking about UFOs. And yet, Jimmy, for me, the turning point in my country was when I was doing a story on our Air Force. And I wish I could say who they were, but they were two very, very senior officers of the Australian Air Force. And we'd been filming with them for a day, and we were sitting in an officer's mess, and they'd asked me to stay and have a beer. And I did. And we're sitting there, and finally, one of them asked me, listen, why don't you chaps do stories about UFOs? And I remember I sat back in my chair and I crossed my arms defensively and I said, because they're bullshit. UFOs are bullshit. And there was this kind of embarrassed silence. And he went, no, they're not. And then in the course of an evening, a few more beers were had and a large number of pilots were sort of brought to the table and quietly sat down in front of me, and they started talking about incidents that they were aware of, things that they'd seen. And probably 90% of the people that I spoke to had seen anomalous phenomena. And then I got to know, I've done a lot of stories on aviation in my career as an investigative journalist. I love following the system of investigation of aircraft accidents. And I love retelling aircraft accidents. And so I've spoken to an enormous lot of pilots from different airlines all around the world, but particularly from our airline, our national airline, Qantas. And socially, you're sitting there having a beer with a Qantas pilot and you raise UFOs. The first thing they do is they go, yeah, I've seen one. but they all check first to make sure they're having a quiet conversation, and they say, "I'll never talk about it. I know you're a journo, and I know you want to get me on camera, but no, I'm never going to talk about it because it's a career ender. I can't talk about it." And it's not that there's some little man sitting in an office somewhere going, "No, there's Joe Bloggs. He's talking to Coulthart against UFOs again. We're going to get him dumped from Qantas. There's no way he can keep on flying if he talks about UFOs." It's better than that. It's a self-imposed censorship. The person themselves is acculturated to the idea. And it's been done through our popular culture, through Hollywood movies, through fictional retellings. We've been told, let's treat this as a hoot. It's all rubbish. It's all whack job stuff. You're a tinfoil hat crazy if you believe this stuff. And it's incredibly powerful because I felt even those witnesses, the slightly flippant manner, the hubris that they demonstrated when they sat before the Congress the other week, I didn't think they were taking this seriously. And I think they were. They were wrong-footed by the questions from at least two of the representatives, Gallagher among them, who had the foresight and the wisdom to actually ask some sharp questions. And as you rightly pointed out, one of the people on the sidelines champing at the bit going, by God, I want to get in there, is Tim Burchett. Now, I don't agree with Tim Burchett about everything he says in politics, but by golly, I'm cheering him on with the questions he's asking. Because fundamentally, this is another thing. We're talking on a very important day for your country, a National Memorial Day, where you honour your fallen men and women in service. We have a similar day here in Australia called Anzac Day. And it's a very, very solemn day. It's the most important day in our country. But these people have died for a reason. They've sacrificed for a reason. They've sacrificed for freedom. They've sacrificed for the freedom, most of all, for Republican and Democrat senators and congressmen to ask hard questions in the Congress without fear or favour, to get answers from the executive, which, after all, is answerable to you, the people. And I just think sometimes our governments and our countries have forgotten all about this, that we live in representative democracies. And the thing that shocks me as a journalist and as somebody who I've written history books, I can tell you the history that is traced in the archival documents of your government and mine is a counterfactual history to the history that we've been told by our governments about UFOs and UAPs. At the very same time that we've been told, oh, it's all rubbish. I've spoken to politicians and they all sort of sit back in their chair and laugh and they go, oh, you're going to ask me the UFO question, Roscoe, And it's this humor, this ribald humor that basically happens when you raise this subject matter. Why? Why do we do that?
It's so ingrained, and they're hoping that they can deflect. And on this, I wanted to ask you about this. There were some hidden gems. There were some nuggets in the UFO hearing, and one of them came from Schiff, Representative Schiff, Chairman Schiff, when he said, "What about in the UAP task force report?" Radio frequencies and energies associated with UFOs and UAPs. And Moultrie and Bray answered with something very revealing but cryptic at the same time. That
they basically buck passed. They said, "Let's talk about that in private session." I think,
right?
And look, I know for a fact that I've spoken publicly about this before. I know for a fact that there is attempts to track and indeed bring down whatever these phenomena are. And they've been using tracking technology since at least the 1950s. They've known the signals that allow them to detect and predict where these things are going to be. And now, I'm told this has been happening.
Yeah, and Bray and Moultrie both stated that they were attempting communication with UAP. Now, what do you and they didn't expand on it, but it certainly seems to me that either they are communicating or they know how UAP is communicating, right? Is that what you got from that statement?
Well, look, frankly, it was as clear as mud what they did mean, and I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall in the closed hearing where the full answer to the question was given. But yeah, I mean, clearly the congressmen were onto the issue of whether or not there's been attempts to communicate with these objects and whether or not it's possible to track them using communications technology. My understanding, and in fact, I quote a guy who very kindly allowed himself to be quoted on the record in my book. He's a former communications specialist who was responsible for installing the comms system in the White House, and he's got a top secret compartmentalized clearance. But he told me on the record that he was present in an aerospace contractor office where he was shown technology which showed, among other things, objects maneuvering in front of satellites in orbit. And he was also shown and briefed about attempts to track objects that were coming in and out of the water off Florida on the southeastern coast of your country. Now, I know a lot more about that incident now, but because I actually have a respect for your intelligence community and I know what's trying to be done, I don't really want to go into too much detail here. But I know there is an active program underway. And one of the things, Jimmy, I did want to have a bit of a rant about today is there's a growing Twitter troll community that has a swipe at people like me who confine themselves to what they're allowed to talk about by referring to confidential anonymous sources.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people have been having a swipe at me recently saying, oh, that Coulthart guy, keeps on claiming he's spoken to such and such a source. Why doesn't he just name the source? And to me, it's a fundamental misunderstanding of basic investigative journalism that's basically defined how American journalism operates for much of the last 100 years. Confidential sources are part and parcel of modern journalism. They are essential. And the reason why is because for people to talk to me is arguably in breach of their national security oath. There is a very, very strict constraint on people's freedom to talk about this issue. There are people in the US government, most notably in the US Air Force, who are trying to shut this issue down. And that's why this congressional hearing is so revolutionary, because not only are we having public hearings, there've been private hearings since 2018. And many of the representatives and senators who are now asking questions are asking questions informed by what they've already seen. And that's why they're so wound up about it, because they know stuff you and I don't know.
Have they pinpointed, you can tap once for yes, twice for no. Have they pinpointed that location in the Atlantic Ocean?
Yes, they have. Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard the same thing.
Yeah, and indeed there are other locations all around the world where they've witnessed objects coming in and out of the sea. One of the problems, and I actually got a lot of respect for this, is, America has, as we're now seeing in Ukraine, vastly superior technology to Russia. No matter what the Russians say and how much they brag about their hypersonic missiles, they are getting almightily embarrassed and trounced with superior American, British, and French and German technology in Ukraine. And that's a good thing, frankly. Tyranny and dictatorships should not be allowed to dominate over people trying to exercise their rights of freedom of choice. And the interesting thing is that there is technology that is being used for the detection of underwater objects, which we use as part of your strategic nuclear defense, that is very, very important. It's not just acoustic, it's electromagnetic. And that's all I can say. Basically, the US is way ahead of Russia on this. And I can completely understand why sources, means, and methods cannot be revealed. But it's real, and they do have incredibly good data on what's being seen underwater. And I know, because people have told me what's been revealed about it, I know that certain members of Congress and senators are aware of this.
Let's take our break right here. And when we come back, I want to talk a little bit about social media and what is happening out there. I made some comments earlier today, the beginning of the show, Ross, that it just seems like people don't want us to have an open conversation about this. And it has it's become very visible in social media. The question is, who is doing it and why? We'll talk about that and much more tonight. Our guest, Ross Coulthart, live from Australia. One segment left. I'm going to try to squeeze it all in. I'm going to do my best. Ross Coulthart from Australia. This is Fade to Black. We'll be right back after this short break. Stay with us.
Hi everybody, this is Rob Halford, the Metal Guard on JimmyChurchRadio.com.
Your 1 million gigawatt paranormal powerhouse, KUNX-DB, the X.
Are you ready to read about true paranormal events? UNX Media publishes nonfiction books about UFOs, ghosts and haunted places, time anomalies, cryptid creatures, and more. Just like KUNX-DB Radio, it's all about unexplained phenomena. Visit www.unxmedia.com to see our list of great book titles by Debbie Ziegelmeyer, Gene Walker, Devin Listrom, Wayne Lawrence, Bill Spicer, and yours truly, Margie Kay. That's unxmedia.com.
This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and I only drink Fade to Black blend coffee from River Moon. Just click on the River Moon Coffee banner at jimmychurchradio.com. Promo code F2B Blend.
This is the only way forward.
This is Fade to Black. Make contact.
This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and this year, June 18th, 2022, the Disclosure Fest Foundation presents the Mass Meditation Initiative. It's Saturday, June 18th from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m., one day only at the Los Angeles State Historic Park in downtown Los Angeles, California, right next to Chinatown. I'm hosting the event again this year with music performances by Trevor Hall, The Desert Dwellers, Poron Key, and many, many more on 4 separate stages. There's 16 stages in total, over 30 acres in downtown Los Angeles, with vendors and tents and presentations and workshops with Billy Carson, Adam Apollo, Lori Spagna, Laura Eisenhower, Brad Olson, David Palmer, and many, many more. It's all simple to do. Just go to disclosurefest.org for all of your tickets, information, and the full schedule of the day's events. Again, disclosurefest.org.
You want to know a secret? I love ponies. I really love ponies. I'm serious. I couldn't stay sane without ponies to brush.
Why fade to black? Because you never got that pony. Damn it.
This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network.
All right, welcome back. Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, Ross Coulthart. Tomorrow night, Billy Carson. Wednesday night, John Burroughs. Thursday night is open lines. It is Fader nights. Open lines all night long. But tonight, it's Ross Coulthart, live from Australia. I'm waiting for Ross to come back into the green room. And he has exited the stage. And one of the things that I wanted to discuss with Ross is what is going on in social media. And I just find it very interesting how our community in general is just an open-minded community. It doesn't matter, what you want to talk about or what you want to discuss or what you've experienced. Everything is on the table. I had said years ago, it was Ross is back. Let's see. I'm waiting for headphones on. I think Ross took a lunch break, and that's okay.
I do.
Yeah, you can do that. Ross, one of the things, I'm just going to say this really quickly. Probably 15 years ago, I attended my first MUFON meeting. Okay. Now I'm doing sports radio at that time, but my interest in UFOs, right? So I'm there, but I've always kept it to myself. And I go to a MUFON meeting and I'm standing there, Ross, as I live and breathe. Somebody to the left of me is telling me about their Bigfoot UFO encounter. Somebody in front of me is talking about their friend's abduction experience with some other people. Somebody over here talking about a sighting that they had a couple of years ago and communicating with. And I'm thinking to myself, man, these are my people. Right? We can sit and have these conversations. I have been holding it in, right? But I can come here and speak freely. That's what the UFO community is about. And by and large on social media, that is what the UFO community is. It's an open mind. Everything is allowed to be put on the table. And it seems that lately there's a concerted effort from those that are not a part of this community to get us arguing, to get us put on blinders, to suddenly not have an open mind, and not to trust anybody. And I find that very, very interesting. What do you think is going on?
I think in part, to be honest, Jimmy, it's old guard people who've enjoyed a dominant position in woo ufology, who are resentful that there's now a broader, greater interest in the subject matter. And I won't name names, but I think some people are trolling for the benefit of trolling, just to keep themselves getting clickbait. I've been quite struck in recent weeks by how there's a growing number of anonymous Twitter accounts that are running very much the same line, pushing skepticism, pushing a why is anybody flogging a dead horse on this issue? How much longer are they going to go on about this stuff? Somebody's trying to influence the narrative, and a lot of them are names I don't see. I mean, I've been quite lucky, I guess, to be able to draw a very engaged and interested Twitter audience on social media, and particularly through the podcast that I'm doing with my friend Bryce Zabel, needtoknow.today. And we're getting a lot of people who are, for the first time, intellectually engaged, people who tell us they've never been interested in this subject matter before. And they're feeling that they can engage because what we're trying to do is engage with this in a journalistic way, like you do, a rigorous journalistic way where you basically come in and objectively assess the facts. One of the things that I've often been very impatient about is, well, for example, the way that the UFO community treated the absolute nonsense that individual Anjali presented earlier on this and last year.
Right.
I don't know too much about that individual, but basically the moment that I heard their assertions about, alien beings hidden inside a mountain and going down a tunnel that was dug through a hill, I thought, okay, well, give them the benefit of the doubt. I'll believe it when I see it. But until that point, there's absolutely no point in giving it fuel, giving it air. Because one of the problems, I think, is that there's a lot of the community on UFO Twitter who only exist because there's something to talk about. And there's an impatience. I've noticed you're actually one of the last interviews I'm going to be doing for quite some time, because I'm withdrawing from public commentary just so I can have the time to start addressing the mountain of information that I've been getting from people. I'm still going to be doing my podcast with Bryce on needtoknow.today, but we're largely going to confine ourselves to what we produce. And this is because, frankly, a lot of UFO Twitter is eating itself. As soon as Lou Elizondo does what, frankly, he's achieved, which is momentous. I mean, who would have thought 3-4 years ago, when TTSA first pushed this former counterintelligence official onto a stage and presented him to the world, who would have thought that we were looking at hearings in the Congress where officials were being called to give evidence? Whatever you think of Lou Elizondo, whatever you think of Christopher Mellon, that is a momentous achievement. And by all means, exercise skepticism. By all means, ask hard questions. But I mean, one of the most specious pieces of bullshit I've seen in a long time was a documentary that was put out called Who's Lou? And ultimately, it was just an attempt at a dirt job by somebody who, frankly, postured as an investigative journalist, presented a huge amount of information, but behind all the smoke, there wasn't much fire at all. I couldn't see any substantive material. I watched it and sat through what was, I think, interminable 2 or 3 hours of nonsense. And essentially what it was a hatchet job on one person who's done a momentous amount to raise public awareness about the issue of UAPs. And it's interesting because I just wonder whether the UFO community realizes what it's doing, because it takes courage for public officials to come forward. Not only is the issue of stepping outside the comfort zone of your national security oath and speaking about things that are probably borderline beyond what you should be talking about because you've basically been working in the secret world for so many years. There's also the issue of engaging on a subject that everybody ridicules. I felt it the same way in the mainstream media. I've copped abuse and denigration from colleagues in the mainstream media who, frankly, some of them have actually had the decency to ring me and apologize in the last few weeks since they've seen the hearings before the Congress. They've gone, actually, you know what, Roscoe, this is for real. This, you're not just making this up. This is for real. But I'm really struck by the fact that the community that represents people who are engaged and collaborating and researching this issue, by far the vast majority of them are people who are intellectually engaged, interested, and who welcome a skeptical rejoinder. I mean, for example, there's a lot of people who keep on attacking Mick West, who sadly, I think has strayed a bit close to becoming a debunker rather than a skeptic in recent weeks. But most of the time, I really admire Mick West. We need people like Mick West. You need skeptics. You need a skeptical rejoinder. We do get things wrong. It's easy to operate with a confirmational bias and see patterns that aren't there or things that don't quite make sense.
Sometimes you got to be brought back to center.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So I really do think the vast majority of the community is doing exactly the right thing. It's embracing and welcoming into it people who are coming into this subject matter new for the first time. And the one thing I'm very proud of is through a community of people that I've made friends with. There's Facebook messenger groups that I belong to. I'm sort of subscribing to information groups that have been incredibly helpful, positive, and collaborative. They're a wonderful community of intelligent people who recognize that there is an anomalous phenomena here that cannot be ridiculed, shouldn't be dismissed, and should be engaged with and investigated. But at the same time that this is happening, there is this nasty little troll audience that is going, look at me, I'm being nasty, I'm saying horrible things about people because I basically want to stay relevant. And that, frankly, is absurd. The way they can stay relevant is by continuing to provide quality analysis and doing thorough research. And there is this weird troll audience in social media that, frankly, think it's a good idea to pull down people like Elizondo, for example. And they constantly insinuate that he's a dark force of the deep state and that he's doing some kind of dirty work for the government as a counterintelligence agent. Well, if you're going to make claims like that, prove it. Give me the evidence. I'd love to hear it. If you think that you've got evidence that proves that Lou Elizondo is continuing to work as an operative of the US intelligence community, then prove it. I mean, I noticed somebody made a big song and dance the other day about how Lou was described by Daniel Sheehan, his attorney, as continuing to work for US Space Command and to advise them on UAPs. And everybody went, oh, there's the deep state. Yeah, there it is. That's your evidence. What an amazingly good idea for Space Command to hire Lou Elizondo to advise them on UAPs. What is wrong with that? I mean, seriously.
Ross, if they contacted you, if Space Command contacted you, you would sign up.
Yeah, only if they asked me not to sign NDAs. I mean, I'd immediately, I couldn't help myself, Jimmy. I'd basically grab every file I could and run out the door with all the videos of strange objects around the space shuttle and different objects around the space station. And I'd pull every executive in and I'd say, okay, I want the truth and I want nothing but the truth. And the bottom line is, I'm hoping Lou's doing that inside Space Command, but I strongly doubt he is. But isn't it a fantastic thing that they're relying on somebody with his expertise to give them that advice? Full marks. I mean, to me, it represents a level of open-mindedness by the Space Command that, frankly, I'm not seeing in other U.S. government agencies.
It's needed. If Space Command, Space Force came to Jimmy Church and said, hey, we just want to have a conversation and we need some advice. Can we ask you some questions? You want to be a consultant? Yeah, that doesn't make me a shill. That doesn't. Yeah. No, absolutely not. That component of this is exactly what has been missing for so many years.
It's breathtakingly naive, and frankly, it's clear to me from the research that I've done that there are two factions operating at the moment inside the military industrial establishment of the United States. There are a bunch of mainly religious nutters who are evangelical Christians who think that you and I will be offended by what they believe are demonic entities that are behind whatever this is. I've got no idea what they're talking about, but people have actually said to me that a large part of this is driven by religious convictions, particularly inside the US Air Force. And it's interesting because when I've engaged with people in the US Air Force, quite often I'm asked, are you Christian? And I was raised Christian. I went through boys' boarding school in New Zealand, and I think if anything puts you off Christianity, it's being sent through boarding school and having to go to church every day. But no, I have raised my children with the morals and the beliefs of Christian religion, and I think Jesus probably was a real person. But I don't define the way I see my world through a Christian perspective. I'm open to all religions, and I think a lot of them say pretty much the same thing. And isn't it interesting what they do say? Because they're all talking about a super intelligence that is benevolently directed towards humanity, that responds to our entreaties, to our prayer, that guides us through our life and essentially asks us to maintain a kind of a moral character throughout our life, that has been here and was integral in our creation. Is that vastly different from our notions of a superhuman alien intelligence?
So Ross is saying UAP possibly may be demonic.
Well, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that there are people in the US Air Force who are principally 100%. Responsible for obstructing this
I've heard
from
this.
emerging.
I've heard this over and over and over again for the last 10 years. This has been a repeated statement. Ross, can I change the subject?
Sure.
Well, not really. I'm not changing the subject. We're still talking UFOs. But while I've got you here, you and I have never discussed Westall, either privately or on the show. But I have stated so many times over the years, and now that you're here, I can gloat a little bit. I can pat myself on the back. But I've gone down the list, right? There's the Westall, right? And it's just amazing to me that one of the most documented cases with some of the most witnesses of any UFO incident in the history of this planet happened in Australia with school children. And I think it's an extraordinary event. Is the Australian view on Westall different than the UFO phenomena in general? How is it treated there, not only with the government, but with the public?
Look, it largely disappeared from public knowledge for much of the last few decades until a brilliant film was made about it, funded with film finance funding from the Victorian government, one of the states in this country. And that film was a slightly quirky film, but what was powerful about it was that it
Are you talking about Westall 66?
Yeah. Yeah, and it's a brilliant film. You can actually watch it on YouTube, I think, and it's a brilliant movie. I recommend it to anyone. But what really shocked me, there's a good mate of mine down in Melbourne, James Rigney, who introduced me to a number of these witnesses, and we actually went back to the football field where the incident happened on the 6th of April, 1966. And we did this on the 55th anniversary last year of the sighting. And I was expecting maybe 2 or 3 people to turn up, but heaven bless them, people came from all over Australia because they were still so passionate about this subject. They were so driven by conviction that what they saw was something real, it was something anomalous, and that it had never been properly explained. And they were so excited that a member of the mainstream media was going to be there with his camera crew to take them seriously. And so we did take them seriously. And I was actually shocked by the detail that these people remembered. All of them, like hundreds of kids. There's a lovely fellow called Shane Ryan in Canberra who's got a Facebook page devoted to the Westall story. And Shane has personally tracked down and interviewed, I think, over 200 witnesses to this incident, where at 10:30 a.m. in the morning, bunch of little kiddies, about hundreds of little kiddies, standing on a football field. They're all about 10, 12. They look up and they see 3 lenticular disc-shaped UAPs hovering overhead. Clearly solid, clearly mechanical technology of some kind, clearly responding to aircraft that are coming towards them. And as the kids watch, as an aircraft slowly trundles around the sky and comes towards one of the objects, they literally just go, boom, and instantaneously move across the sky to another point of the sky. And they watch, amazed for minutes, as this cat and mouse game's happening in front of them, 200 or 300 feet above them in the air. And then as they watch, one of these objects descends into an area of bushland, an area of forest adjacent to the school. And a number of the kids run. And much to the teacher's annoyance, they jump the fence. And there are teachers there who see this happening as well. One of them is a science teacher who I interviewed. And he, to this day, remembers this very, very clearly. He remembers seeing a metallic, lenticular, disc-shaped object hovering above him, and then watching as one of them descends in the forest adjacent. And one of the little girls who was 10 or 12 at the time, is now in her 60s. And two of them corroborate each other. They describe seeing one of these objects close up, so hot they can feel the heat on their hands. And she basically moves towards the object, and as she's moving towards it, it rises, tips onto a 45-degree angle, and goes instantaneous acceleration. This was followed by, many witnesses saw this, a massive military operation involving Victorian police, emergency services, firemen, and defense personnel who came in, including perhaps American personnel.
United States Air Force, right?
A massive cleanup of this site, including a level of soil, a layer of soil where there were indentations in the ground. It was literally dug up and taken away on trucks. But Jimmy, officially, this never happened.
Right.
There is no record anywhere in any government file of anything relating to this story. The only reason we know it happened, and we know that the media attended, is because we've spoken to the witnesses who spoke to the media. And I was working for the TV network for a while that allegedly sent a film crew out there, and we were able to confirm that a story was done, but the stories disappeared from the archives. It's like somebody went through and removed all memory of this incident. There was one newspaper that covered the issue, but eventually it was all quietly played down. There was never any official explanation for what happened. The government has never ventured an explanation. And officially, supposedly, no report exists of what took place. But I've now confirmed, I've actually spoken to a guy whose father prepared a secret report for a government department that investigated this issue. And he tells me he's prepared to testify to the National Archives of Australia to try and force this report to be disclosed. And I also tracked down, and my friend James Fox, the filmmaker, spoke to him before me, I should acknowledge that, but he went on the record with me and identified himself, the science master. He actually said he was challenged on his doorstep at his home 2 weeks after the incident and told to shut up about what he saw, and that if he spoke about what he saw, he would lose his job as a teacher. And 55, 56 years on, he still burns with anger at the fact that there was very clearly a cover-up that took place by government officers to stop the public from knowing what happened at Westall in April 1966. And years later, we're still trying to find out what happened. But isn't it interesting that so many of these sightings have happened at schools?
Yes. That's a big deal. That's beyond coincidence.
Absolutely.
I wanted to ask you this. Did you talk to the witness? There was a second landing that happened near some shops on a street right after the incident happened in the football field. So it wasn't just one landing, it was two, right?
I haven't spoken to that witness. I think I know of the case that you're talking about. There was also a photograph taken a few days prior by another gentleman in an adjoining suburb of Melbourne. And the provenance of that photograph has obviously been challenged by the debunkers, but it shows a very clear disc lenticular object hovering over a house. And people who saw the object at Westall have described that object as being very similar or identical to what they saw at Westall.
Do you think is it possible? I think this is one of the most documented, fascinating cases out there. I really do. Is it possible to to have all of the law enforcement and the media and the television station in complete coordination, in lockstep, in covering this up to where there isn't a paper trail. Is like Roswell an example of that? Yes, this can be done.
Yeah, I think it is. And I think if you look back in your history, the Manhattan Project, the building of the atomic bomb was one of the biggest secrets in your nation's history.
Right.
And it was largely kept secret for the duration of the project until the bomb was exploded over Nagasaki and Hiroshima in August of 1945. And they were working on that bomb after Einstein approached the president very early in the war and said that it was possible to build a weapon like that. They had tens of thousands of people working on the Manhattan Project. And there was a phenomenal effort made to keep it confidential. And they succeeded. They largely succeeded until, of course, the secret of the bomb was compromised well after the war by the Soviets having spies inside the nuclear weapons program. But I believe, yes, there are secrets that have been kept inside the United States for many years successfully with the collaboration of law enforcement and other agencies. It can happen. It does happen. I mean, look, for example, at the incredible secret of warrantless wiretapping, that Americans were illegally being tapped by your national security agency until it was exposed by courageous journalism and finally brought into the public light. There were people who knew about it, but it hadn't been revealed.
Our government would never do that, Ross.
No, of course not.
Never. Now, what do you see? What a great conversation tonight, and thank you for just the perfect night. This is Radio Gold tonight. What do you see now? What's the chit chat? What do you see for hearings in the immediate future? What have you heard? What is next?
I'm optimistic that there definitely will be hearings, possibly as early as within the next 2-3 weeks. But if we don't get the right congressmen, Congress representatives, the right senators asking the right questions, and if we don't get the right witnesses, believe me, you and I are going to be very old men in another 54 years asking when the hell is the truth going to be told about UAPs? Because we only get one go at this. And Congress, in its wisdom, has decided to do it now. But by golly, people need to rattle the cage. They genuinely need to let their representatives know this matters. It really matters. Write a letter to your congressman, your congresswoman. Write a letter to your senator. Let them know this is something that matters to you. You want the truth. It really does matter because the wheel that squeaks in politics gets the grease.
Every time. Who would you like to see as witnesses?
I'd like to see every single member of the senior review group of the Department of Defense in the past 20 years. And I'd like to see every single member of the Special Access Program Committee, the Special Access Program Oversight Committee, put under oath and asked formally, are they willing to testify that they are unaware of any retrieved technology that is not human? I think that will be the definitive moment in American history.
You don't want much. You don't want much. What about? I think there's two guys that nobody wants to talk about. That there's the list is long, but at the top of my list, Rear Admiral Daley and Rear Admiral Curtis, the two commanders of the Nimitz battle group back in 2004.
Yeah, it's interesting. On the other side of the American continent, when Ryan Graves reported what he saw, I think he was on the USS Theodore Roosevelt, or no, he was off the coast. But pilots who were on the Roosevelt, they described their admiral when he came in and looked at the vision, looking very nonplussed and unsurprised. And the same thing happened to the pilots on the Nimitz. That when the senior commander, the senior battle fleet cruiser admiral basically looked at what was being shown on their internal comms, there was no surprise. So there is still a question mark in my mind, Jimmy, that there is some agency of the United States that has been doing stuff in the black that we don't know about. But I don't think that explains all of the phenomenon that humanity's been seeing for the past 75, 80 to 1,000 years. I think there's clearly been something around for a long time. But our sensor systems, our technology is now detecting it, and it's becoming irrefutable. The American government can no longer deny it because the technology is there. Too many people have seen it. Then they now have to make a statement. They have to express a position. The only question is, how honest are they going to be?
Yeah. Ross, one last question, man. I'm going to one last question you to death until tomorrow morning. But if you were going to give advice to both the Senate Intelligence Committee and the Committee on Terrorism and Intelligence in Congress on how to navigate this because of the complex issues of lawsuits, of some serious issues that could be put on the table, whether it's energy and free energy and technology and things that could have been shared with mankind, all the way to direct lies and people that have been injured. And it's a complex, deep, multi-layered onion. So if you were going to advise them on how to disclose without the fear of anger, right? I mean, just public outrage on this, what would you tell them?
It's funny, I've got a doctor friend who I was doing a story with once about doctors making mistakes, medical mistakes. And he was a beautiful Sri Lankan doctor living in Brisbane in Queensland in Australia. And he said to me, Ross, I have never been sued. And he said, a lot of doctors do get sued. But he said, when I make a mistake, and doctors, believe me, we do make mistakes, I always sit my patient down and I say, honestly, what happened? And I tell them. And if they want to sue me, they can. But, nobody ever has. And he says, I think people want truth. And I think this is why I've been arguing, I actually like to take the credit for the idea of an immunity or a Truth and Reconciliation Commission, because I'm pretty sure I was the first one to suggest it. But I actually think we shouldn't be vilifying these people. I think that the reasons why this has been kept secret were, in the era, laudable. They thought they were doing the right thing. The trouble is the reasons no longer exist. The reasons for Cold War secrecy can no longer be justified. But I don't think we should vilify people unless they continue to lie. I think they should be given an opportunity to just tell the truth. And if they want to put the best possible spin on that and explain their motives for why they've lied to the American public, and they have, then good luck to them. But they should be given the opportunity to tell the truth. But by golly, Jimmy, if anybody lies to the Congress, if anybody continues to deceive and manipulate and dissemble and obfuscate, I reckon they should be tied to the back of a Humvee and publicly tarred and feathered and vilified. This is their one chance. Because frankly, this is a truth that has been withheld from the American public and the world for decades. And I'm talking to people who've told me what they think the public needs to know. And it's interesting because it's not necessarily what we think. And frankly, they don't think there's any good reason for continuing to keep it confidential. And yes, there's exigencies like Ukraine. There's the fact that we've got a nutter like Putin on the other side of the planet who's threatening nuclear weapons. We've got China doing all manner of things to try and undermine American hegemony in the Pacific. And my country's nervous about that. But that shouldn't stop the truth from being told. And it's interesting, just this week I had an official from our government on a semi-official basis just gently reach out to me and say, any chance of a quiet chat sometime? There's a beginning of an awareness that there's going to have to be an accounting for this, that they can no longer just glibly ignore the public. And the reason why is because of everybody out there and because of people like you, Jimmy. You've been asking questions. And all we've got to do, all the people have got a right to do is to ask questions. And that's what our representatives in the Congress are there for as well. They're going to ask questions. And by golly, whatever it takes, they're going to get an answer.
Thank you so much, Ross. Really quick, you and Bryce with Need to Know, when do you guys release the podcast?
We generally do it on Thursdays and release it around about Friday, Saturday, your time. We're recording tomorrow, and what we're doing is an analysis of what we think of the UAP hearings and what's to come. And if anybody wants to watch or listen to it, you can find out all about it at www.needtoknow.today. And if you want to read my book, In Plain Sight, it's all in all good bookshops, and I'm delighted to know it's also available on Audible and all good downloads.
We've got the links to your book in social media and also in the description box below. Ross Coulthart, thank you so much, my man, and a great conversation. Keep rolling that rock uphill. Seriously, thank you so much.
Jimmy. All the best to you, mate. Cheers. Bye-bye.
The absolute very best, Ross Coulthart. And again, the links for Ross's book are right here below. They're over on our website, and we have them throughout social media. And with that, I'm going to take a quick break, and I'll swing back after this, and I'll take some of your phone calls. That's right, 747-228-2051. This is Fade to Black. What a great conversation tonight. That was perfect. Did Ross just say this might be his last one for a while? Wow. That's an honor. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. This is Fade to Black. I'll be right back with your phone calls. Stay with me.
You're listening to Jimmy Church and Fade to Black on the X.
Hey, what up, y'all? It's your girl Vivica Fox here, and you are listening to my boy, Jimmy Church, on jimmychurchradio.com.
Despite popular opinion, reading a book will not make you smarter.
But listening to Jimmy Church will.
This is Billy Carson, founder and CEO of ForbiddenKnowledge.tv. ForbiddenKnowledge.tv is the fastest growing and one of the most watched networks in the world. And I would like to personally invite you to check out our expanding library of TV, film, lectures, and special presentations. ForbiddenKnowledge.tv has over 6,000 videos covering lost history, health, UFOs, spirituality, and our future. We are committed to our community, and with my personal invitation, you can right now get your own free 30-day membership at ForbiddenKnowledge.tv. Your own library of information starts today at ForbiddenKnowledge.tv.
Your 1 million gigawatt paranormal powerhouse, KUNX-DB, VX.
Are you ready to read about true paranormal events? UNX Media publishes nonfiction books about UFOs, ghosts and haunted places, time anomalies, cryptid creatures, and more. Just like KUNX-DB Radio, it's all about unexplained phenomena. Visit www.unxmedia.com to see our list of great book titles by Debbie Ziegelmeyer, Gene Walker, Devin Listrom, Wayne Lawrence, Bill Spicer, and yours truly, Margie Kay. That's unxmedia.com.
When you take the beans from Central America with dashes of Indonesian and African mixed in and then roast it to the dark side of Fade to Black, you create the ultimate brew of fringe. Introducing the Fade to Black blend from Rivermoon Coffee. Yes, Rivermoon's darkest customized roast was created for the love of Fade to Black. The alchemy of masterful roasting and smoking the beans is in every sip of this full-bodied, dark Java. I need my coffee dark, deep, with distinct bittersweet chocolate highlights, just like the bunker. Leaning further into the darkness of the roast is Fade to Black blend from Rivermoon Coffee. Just click on the banner at jimmychurchradio.com and use the promo code F2BBLEND for 15% off of your order today.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment. including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
Erica, Brittany, Gabby, and you're listening to JamieChurchRadio.com.
It's not a lifestyle we chose. We were born this way.
This is KJCR at JimmyChurchRadio.com.
The last sip of coffee. Oh, man, I hate that when that happens. Yeah. Fade to Black blend. Thank you, Ross Coulthart. That was a perfect conversation and a great way to start off the week here on Fade to Black. I had said 747-228-2051, and if you are on hold, stay right there, and I'll get to phone calls here in a second. I had said the day of the hearing, and I am not some armchair dude. I got up at 5:30 in the morning to watch that hearing live. And I took copious notes, and I paid attention to every single word. And I had said after the hearing and in social media, and then also later on that night, and since then, that the hearing itself happened. That was 90 minutes. The analysis of this hearing and its implications and its importance are not going to be known until the days and weeks ahead as we turn around and look back at this. And the more that I do that, the ginormity of what that hearing represented is just now starting to soak in. It's like a big deal. I can only imagine, 5, 10, 20 years from now, how that hearing is going to be talked about in a historical context. I think it's that big of a deal. And getting Ross's input on it today, very important. He's such a great journalist and an investigative reporter, and with serious contacts. And I think that he understands the importance of it. But the other side, which is brought out today, if I'm going to go back and catch one thing that Ross said, is that this is just the first of many hearings. We cannot be happy. We cannot be complacent. As great as the hearing was and as important as it was, we cannot be happy. We've got to ask for more. We've got to continue. We can't let Washington or the Department of Defense think that it's over now. They got the hearing out of the way. They don't have to do this again. No, that's not the case. That being said, Ross said that he expects, the chit-chat, the chatter out there is that there is going to be another hearing in the next 2 to 3 weeks. I'll let you know that I've heard the same thing. So, and I've kind of alluded to that. And wouldn't it be amazing if it does happen that quickly? And I think that it is. I hope that the things that I have heard and the things that Ross has been able to extrapolate out there from the conversation out there that's going on, that there is going to be another hearing in the next 2 to 3 weeks. I just don't know who the witnesses are going to be. That I don't know. I don't know the context of the hearing either. And I don't want to pretend that I know these things. I don't. But won't that be interesting when it goes down? With that, let's go to the phones. Hi, you're live on Fade to Black. Who's calling?
Hello, Steve.
Hi, Steve. Where are you calling from?
Sierra Madre, California.
From Sierra Madre?
Yes.
Okay. What's on your mind, Steve?
I was just your talk about the hearings and stuff. I wonder if they're going to go a little deeper into, like, actually, like, I know UAP, but UFO stuff. I mean, are they going to actually talk about aliens?
Well, it depends on who the witnesses are, right? Obviously, they tried to talk about that with Scott Bray and Moultrie, and they didn't get anywhere. Yeah, they didn't get anywhere. They got
That's behind the closed doors.
I would have loved, at some point, you can expect John Greenwald to get the notes from the classified briefing, and that will be brought out in the Freedom of Information Act. It's not completely classified. The public still has a right to know. So, yeah, what was discussed in the classified part of the briefing? I think that the representatives definitely tried to, you heard it in the line of questioning, and ET and extraterrestrials and things not of this earth were brought up in this hearing multiple times. And I think that both Bray and Moultrie at the beginning tried to dance around directly answering any of that. But at the end of the briefing, when this came up a couple of more times, that they said that they were interested in the search for extraterrestrial life, and that there was, I think it was Bray, that even said that there is room for scientific discovery. And I thought, what interesting choice of words. Yeah. What is scientific discovery? Well, okay. So again, leaving it open. I think that the government, the Department of Defense and the military and these agencies would love for something to happen where there would be an alleged discovery made, so they would have an out, that they haven't known about this forever, but now we've made this recent discovery, so now we can talk about this date and moving forward, and let's leave the past 70 years. Let's not talk about that. But we've made
Forget
this
Roswell and everything else.
Right. You're rolling the dice. You're hoping that something's going to happen, so you can focus on that and say, "Aha, we've made a discovery here with radio signals from another, star system. Something being identified." But it wasn't anything that happened in the last 70 years, right? It happened today. Let's focus on that and move forward. So yeah, for Bray to say that there's another category here, which is scientific discovery. So we'll see. Thanks for the phone call, Steve. Yeah. Enjoy the rest of your night, man. We'll see you tomorrow.
One more question. You're looking forward to the shower tonight?
Absolutely. As soon as this show is over in 12 minutes, I'm outside.
My son is heading up to Azusa Canyon, but I looked it up. I don't know if it's going to be. I heard it's like closed at like 8 p.m., but maybe open tonight. I don't know.
Yeah.
But he said might go to La Crescenta to go see it.
Yeah. Well, I'll let you know. I'm out here in the Mojave Desert, so I'll let everybody know. I'll tweet out. If I catch anything, I'll let everybody know.
I'm looking at the sky right now. I'm in Sierra Madre right now. It's pretty dark. Not much light pollution, but I hope to see something. Yeah, thank you, Jimmy.
I'll talk to you, Steve. Thank you so much. It's time to fade to black. Everybody needs to look in the direction of Hercules. Okay. And if you have, I use a program on my phone. This is not a paid endorsement. I use Night Sky, and Night Sky is free to download. They have another paid version of it, which I don't use the paid version. And night sky looks like, where is it on my phone? Okay, well, enough of this. I'm not going to, yeah, there it is. Okay, so that's the logo. It looks like that. Oh, I don't even know if you can see it, but it's called Night Sky. And so when you open it up, Night Sky shows you this. Let me see. I don't even know. I can't see myself. I've got everything covered up. Okay. So that's what Night Sky shows you. Oh, man, not now. Okay. And so you are able to, wherever you are, there's the horizon. Now, if I point up, right now, I'm looking at the sky above me. If I have the phone like this, is GPS, and I can see everything, all the constellations and everything that is going on. So you want to find Hercules and then look in that direction. That's what's great about night sky. You just, oh, there's Hercules right there. I'm looking at it. Right? Okay. Just get night sky and look in the direction of Hercules tonight. So it's either all or nothing. That's what NASA says. It's either all or nothing. All right, let's see here. Who is up next? Hi, you're live on Fade to Black. Who's calling?
Good evening, Jim. It's Mike in Montana.
Hi, Mike in Montana.
I just wanted to ask a quick question of if the Senate should have a hearing on UFOs, say in the next few months or within the year, is the next step maybe to have a disclosure rally in D.C.?
Yeah, wouldn't that be nice? Wouldn't that be nice? Okay, now you said Senate. Okay, so are you referring to Marco Rubio and the Senate Intelligence Committee?
Exactly.
Okay, because right now the hearings are going on in Congress. It's not the Senate Intelligence Committee. I would say that the Senate. Now, I'm just speaking as an American citizen here. Congress is one thing, but the Senate is it's a notch above on the intimidation factor, right? When you get to the Senate hearings, things are getting really serious. And I would expect that the line of questioning from Rubio and the Senate Intelligence Committee would be completely different than what is going on right now. I could be completely wrong. I applaud Andre Carson and the current committee that is doing this. But if these hearings continue, and they will, should we get the citizens together and have a disclosure rally? I would promote it. I would speak at it. I would help organize it. Yeah, I think that would be the next step, man. Let's get some permits together, whether we do it at the Lincoln Memorial, or I don't know if we could do it the steps of the Capitol building anymore. I don't think that's a good idea. But
no, probably not.
Yeah, probably
the
not.
Lincoln Memorial was definitely my first thought.
Yeah.
With the pool there, the mall.
Yep. Have you been there?
Oh my gosh. I used to live right outside of, my dad was in the service from 1958 to 2008 and stationed right outside of DC. And my mom protested the war from I remember the first rally I went to, I think it was 67 or 68. That year. And then all the way until the 70s. I mean, it was nonstop, almost every weekend, or at least twice, a month. She hated the fact that we were fighting in Vietnam, and we knew people that died, in that conflict. So, my dad was there for a bit too. So
it's such a powerful place. And most people, most citizens of the United States have not been to Washington, D.C. I totally get that. I've only been there a few times myself, and I didn't get there until I was an adult. I didn't go there when I was a kid. But when you go you're going to do two things when you go to the Lincoln Memorial. You're going to go up to the steps. You're going to go all the way in and check out Lincoln sitting in the chair. And then you can read the stuff on the walls, right? It's pretty crazy. But then you turn around and you look at the mirror pool and you look at the two sidewalks that go down the sides. And then down at the end is the Washington Memorial, right? At the end. Right. And you just think about all of the historical moments in this country's history that took place right there. And you cannot help but just stop on those steps and look out and think about that. It's a powerful, powerful place. And I wish everybody could get the chance to go and just stand on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial and face the park and look out and just think about that. Right? Oh, man, it's just crazy. So, yeah, should we do it? I think that we should. I don't think there's any question about that. I've spoken about this for years, Mike. And if the opportunity presents itself, I'll throw my complete weight behind it, of which I have a lot. So there you go. Thank you so much, Mike. Great phone call. And what a great show tonight. What a great show. Yeah, absolutely. It's time to fade to black. And what a great show. And the thing is, I like to be inspired and I like to learn things. And it's all about knowledge. And tonight with Ross, and I know that all of you went along with me for the ride, is that Ross is inspiring. He's inspiring. And if in the world of journalism, and trust me when I say navigating UFOs in the world of journalism, that's the big no-no. It is. There's only been a couple over the last few decades that have chosen to do this. Larry King certainly is one. George Knapp is another. Art Bell. And the ability to succeed in not only a career, but getting people to listen and to raise the awareness of these issues, that's tough and it's rare. It's rare. It is not the norm. And Ross Coulthart has chosen to do this in a world of broadcast that is vicious with this subject. And there you go. So I applaud. He's just inspiring to me. Absolutely inspiring. With that, I want to thank Ross for coming on tonight. NeedToKnow.today is the website. They're going to be putting together the new podcast tomorrow, him and Bryce Zabel. And I guess he said release it by Thursday or Friday. There you go. Ross, I want to thank you for coming on tonight. Tomorrow night, Billy Carson's going to be here. And we're going to be talking about the Black Knight satellite. Something that not only should be talked about today with everything else that is going on, but it's been a subject in the UFO community for a number of years. The Black Knight satellite is not something new. His film releases worldwide this Sunday. And so tomorrow night, we're going to be talking about the Black Knight satellite. And we're going to talk about things that you may not have known about the Black Knight satellite before. So that goes on tomorrow night with Billy Carson. Wednesday nights, John Burroughs. What a great week here on Fade to Black. Thursday night, of course, is another Fader night with open lines all night long. Fade to Black is produced by Hilton J. Palm, Renee, Dennis, and Kevin. Announcers are Steve Harder, Gene Vitoa, Mark D. Kovar. Webmaster is Drew the Geek. Music, Doug Aldrich. Intro, Spaceboy. SpaceboyMusic.com. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Game Changer Network. And this broadcast is owned and copyrighted 2022 by Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network, Inc. It cannot be used or copyrighted anywhere in the known universe without written permission from Fade to Black or the Game Changer Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. I'll see everybody tomorrow night with Billy Carson. Until then, I want everybody to be safe. It's time to fade to black.